Good afternoon, everybody. This is Omar Serrano with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. And late last night, I was, well, it was a quiet evening. It was a quiet Tuesday evening. And then I got summoned because Lauren Knighty, my best YouTube friend, had broke news that Blake Lively just filed her amended complaints. Now, they had made a lot of claims that Justin Baldoni did not have the receipts. I know all of you are familiar with the fact that there was a 168-page timeline that was authored by Baldoni's legal team where they took everybody step by step and demonstrated how Justin Baldoni was innocent in this whole thing and how Blake Lively's conduct was exceptionally unreasonable. They painted that picture, and then Lively's team took it and said, yeah, that's all bullshit. None of that. We actually have the receipts, and wait till you get a load of this. Now, when I was in law school, I was taught how to write in 3 dimensions. There's legal writing that you write for contracts, which is very linear, very academic, and almost coded in such a way that you, if you're a layperson, are going to be glazed over, bored to tears, you're not paying attention, and yet there's things happening in that contract that you really you don't understand because you've glossed right over it. The way that you write in 3 dimensions is you don't just tell people a timeline, you paint a picture, you go over the facts, you enrich all of the senses, which is to say you attach fact to allegation. Every allegation, every sentence should be attached to a fact. Absent facts, the sentences, no matter how emotional the pleas, no matter how emotional your arguments, no matter how brilliantly you summarize what you want to say, is going to fall flat if you can't attach every sentence, every meaningful allegation to a specific place and time attached to a tangible fact that supports your position. Otherwise, I mean, hell, we can do this all day and have a hardcore discussion about where we fall on our beliefs of the origins of the universe. I can't prove the existence of a God any more than you could prove the existence of there is not a God. And we could go roundabout all day and spout off our opinions. Now, Blake Lively's complaints was short on facts initially, which is fair because in civil litigation, you tend to reserve on those things. There is discovery after all, right? But what if the defendants, multiple, know that you are so full of shit and they are so confident in their case and they are so adept at public relations that they release by way of not just their response to the complaint, not just in their cross complaint against Blake Lively, but they author and publish a website containing their amended complaint, and they actually bring receipts, 168 pages worth of text messages and screenshots and images and links to videos, all supporting a position that Blake Lively, far from being a victim, is all at once a narcissistic, all-consumed liar. And she attempted to bulldoze her way into this film, initially adopting the position of actress, aspiring ultimately to gain PGA credits into the film, and elevate herself to a position where she was taking over the film, while kicking out Justin Baldoni with a concerted effort to operate behind the scenes using her position of influence and her husband's position of influence and their team of mega superstars to undermine Justin Baldoni's contributions to a film that was in the works since like 2019. Imagine that you're Blake Lively's attorneys and you hand wave away this timeline, and then you come back and what you file, I have to say, in a high profile case of this nature, of this magnitude, It is the worst pleading that I have ever seen that attempts to accomplish anything resembling public relations, that resembles trying to gain credibility for your clients, that includes trying to advance your claims. It reads like a 12-year-old's diary. And that's what I'm going to break down. I'm not going to read it for word for word. I'm not going to do that. We're not doing a 10-hour podcast today. But I'm going to break down the highlights, and I'm going to tell you what I think about what's going on, who's winning, and where do we all go from here. That's all coming up next.
Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrano with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started.
What's up, Bruce? How you doing, man? Good to see you there in the chat. Hey, if you want a link, just let me know, man. I'm trying to leave you alone. I'm sure you're all livelied out, and so I'm not trying to bother you about this. But if you want to jump in to say some things, you're welcome. Laura 90, same goes for you. Same for any of my regular guests. We may or may not be having a wayward schnitzel join us later. But listen, when it comes, what I mean by three-dimensional writing is Justin Baldoni. I was critical of their writing in the flowery, a lot of the lengthy, flowery overtures that relate to emotional arguments that are self-indulgent of the writer, where they are orating for you and they're giving the big soliloquy. The soliloquies are great, but they're closing arguments. Matter of fact, I think Bruce made that point yesterday on Laura 90s. He said that the amended complaint resembled to him a closing argument, which is true, because in closing arguments, all the evidence has been presented and then you're arguing the evidence that exists. We're still in the creation phase. You got to tell me a story, man. You got to let me know what this means. It's more than saying that, hey, O.J. Simpson incapacitated a male and his wife and left them for dead and fled the scene and left evidence behind and this and that, and going point by point, bullet point by bullet point about all the evidence and all this and that. Three-dimensional writing is O.J. Simpson in a fit of rage after becoming enraged at the prospect that his ex-wife, who had long since moved on, had long since engaged in other relationships, saw the pair dining at a nondescript restaurant on a sultry night in Los Angeles, and in his jealousy and rage confronted the pair. O.J. Simpson, former NFL running back, standing 6'2", weighing 235 pounds, grabbed his ex-wife's suitor by the throats and proceeded to slash and maim him, leaving him with life-threatening injuries, and turned his rage on his wife, where he nearly decapitated her with a weapon, and so on and so forth. You illustrate the points, and then you attach to those, that setting, the facts that fit that narrative. And that's how you create a fourth dimension. And that's what Baldoni's legal team has so expertly done, is they've crafted a narrative, and they spend 168 pages saying, look, we're saying this, but check this out. And we're going to say this too, but check out this email, check out this screenshot, check out this letter, check out this text message, check out this this photograph. So we're at the point where even if you started objectively, where you have not picked a team, you're trying, to stick to the evidence that's been presented, you can't help but want for something more from Lively's team when it comes to this amended complaint. They made a lot of bold statements. They said that there were other women that were going to come forward. There were other complaints. It wasn't just Blake Lively being unreasonable. There were other allegations not previously named. There were other receipts that existed. And then you write this amended complaint. And it's almost like the same You could have copied and pasted the original complaint. I got nothing new. And what's worse is because Baldoni, attorney, Friedman, did such a masterful job of crafting that evidence. Every time that they brought up a point, I viewed it in the context of that timeline. Why? Because it was written in 4 dimensions. Because my brain goes straight to that moment in time and attaches to it those text messages and those images that leads me to be colored by Baldoni's version of events. And if you don't juxtapose that at the very least by some alternate context or looking at it at some different angle, a different camera angle would have been fine. But they said, oh no, it's all bullshit and this and that. And the same old, whatever. And so I endeavored to want to go through this page by page. I have read the whole thing page by page, but it is so redundant to the original complaint. It makes me wonder why they felt the need to amend this. The purpose of an amended complaint is twofold. Because your original pleadings were not complete, and you've learned additional information that you want in the pleading so that you could be able to argue the points at trial. That's one. The second is because you're trying to clean up maybe some of the mistakes, some of the missteps that, because you pled on information and belief, have since been disproven because you have more information now, and maybe you have more information by virtue of amending complaints and cross complaints in a timeline that's been published on the internet and has been up now for a few weeks that the public has largely gravitated to, such that it really resembles the Amber Heard case. It really resembles Depp v. Heard. The Amber Heard case, and I know I don't want to say if you're familiar, you guys remember the Amber Heard case. Amber Heard goes on about these allegations of domestic violence and telling her version of events. And at first, people were very sympathetic. But then there was a point in time where the tide turned. And I didn't pick up on that case. I didn't follow it in the initial stages of it, but I caught wind of it at trial. And at trial, it was one exhibit after another of Amber Heard being caught in a lie. Why did you say it like that? I mean, the famous, I donated $12 million. I'm misremembering the amounts. I donated like $5 million to charity. And then it was this difference between, well, but you didn't actually donate, did you? Well, I pledged. Okay, but you didn't donate, but I pledged. But a pledge is not the same as donate, is it? Well, no, but it was a pledge. It was a promise. So you promised to give $5 million. Yes, I did. But you never did. No, I didn't. Okay. And there was so many different moments like that, not to rehash Depp v. Heard. But in this lawsuit, we're starting to see some of the same thing. Oh, you're fat shamed. How? Well, give me the details. What did he do? Well, he hired a personal trainer that specializes in weight loss, and they try to get me in shape. Okay, and then? No, that was it. It was just a big conspiracy. It was a big ruse to fat shame me. What in the fuck are you on about? No, there has to be more. You're kidding me. I know that was funny, but what's the real reason? No, that was it. Oh, you're serious? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about other stuff. What about the inappropriate touching? What about the slow dance scene? What about him taking liberties at a kissing scene that was filmed? What about nudity writers? What about all these different things? And then you go one by one to all of the individual allegations. And you know that Baldoni has a story to tell, and he's put it in the context of being an upstanding. Look, I've heard Justin Baldoni described in this lawsuit, in this amended complaint, as a pompous, arrogant person. I've heard him described by the majority of you as he's this religious guy that has a really high moral compass. He's never done anything wrong. He would never do such a thing. He has, for all intents and purposes, it's difficult to find people out there to speak negatively of him. I mean, Lively's doing her best. And I think that we're starting to come to the narrative after dissecting this case and sitting with this lawsuit now for a couple of months, that Justin Baldoni was a guy that was trying to elevate his status in Hollywood. Blake Lively already had it inroads to the upper echelons of Hollywood. by virtue of her husband, by virtue of, I don't know, people knew her from Mean Girls. So you guys all probably know her better than I. But before this lawsuit, I had no idea who she was. If she was in the same room with me, like at a Walmart or something, or like at a Target, I have no idea who she was. But she used her position of influence to bulldoze what was perceived to be a nice guy in the Hollywood stratosphere, to push him aside, to steal his credits, to steal his movie from him, to steal his ideas, and ultimately to character assassinate him. She attempted it. She's trying, and she's still trying. And look, discovery is not over. Fair point. I think that of the comments that I've read on these YouTube videos that are people covering these cases, I have read maybe 95% to be Team Justin. Maybe I'm watching the wrong videos, but there's a few of you who commented on Laura Knighty's video last night. It's like, I can't believe you guys are all being so deceived. You just wait until discovery is done. Okay, fine. And a fair point. Sure, I'll wait. I'll wait for the depositions. I'll wait for them to get, and look, the subpoenas and all, the text messages, those are on hold for the time being. Those are being whittled down. They overreached on discovery, so that's going to take a while. So don't hold your breath on that. All I'm saying is, as an attorney, when the facts are on your side, you argue facts. And Brian Friedman has not been shy about sharing, without discovery, the information and evidence that's been readily available to him. He published a website, the timeline, and all of that. You guys have all been there. You guys have all seen it. It's had a significant influence on the general public in the way that we view this case. It was incumbent on Lively's legal team to counter that with facts. Now look, all they did was post text messages and screenshots. You don't have to discover those. And indeed, there are some text messages that were advanced in her original complaint that were conspicuously missing in the amended complaint. Why? Because they were caught in some mistruths. They were caught in some ugly context wars that they're not going to win. And so they are trying to shine a light away from certain things that they originally said and focus on other things that they could more reasonably argue. I'll tell you one other thing that I think is going on. I think that Blake Lively is a little bit too involved with her legal team. And neither one of those attorneys that are on her team have the ability to tell her that, you know what? We're not going to say that. Look, it's not important. It's not relevant to this case. I'm not just going to say that for the sake of saying it. But yet here we are. I feel like 80% of this complaint and the facts that were contained therein, the allegations that were contained therein, were simply put there because Blake Lively wants it to be out there. But there's not any facts attached to them, so they don't have any credibility. You can't just, they're swinging with haymakers and you're trying to jib and jab. It's not a strategy. It's not a winning strategy. It is a strategy. It's not a winning one. And so, without further ado, and again, I'm not going to read word for word. I promised you guys I'm not going to do that. But I have some thoughts and I have some highlights. Let me share my. Oh, I got the timelines up and beautiful. Let me just share my window. And I heard that there's a way you could hotkey this. Maybe Brad. I haven't talked to Brad in a long time. Tell me how to do it. Okay, so this is the complaints. And when I tell you that this, I don't believe that an experienced attorney authored this lawsuit. I don't believe that a 10-year plus attorney sat down and wrote this and felt good about it. I don't believe that a decent attorney would write something like this and feel good about what they wrote. What this feels like is a lot of AI-generated paragraphs. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that there were interns, paralegal interns working at this law firm that took on the responsibility of writing these complaints. And I think it's probably specifically the portions that Blake Lively wanted to get in. And I don't even understand the logic behind it. Like there was a portion of this document, like at page 320, paragraph 322, where they're basically giving a resume of all the cool shit that Justin Baldoni has said regarding his opinions and attitudes towards toxic masculinity and women's rights and femininity and all of this. They spend like a good page and a half hamming him up. And then they say their big conclusion, the big punchline is, a guy like this would have never done what he did here in this case. What the fuck did he do? What did he do? What did he do? I was waiting for the receipts. I'm still waiting for the receipts that they promised. And so, look, the danger of writing like this is twofold. Number one, it's bad writing. But number two, in a high-profile case like this, there is not a bigger celebrity lawsuit pending right now. This has invaded areas of socio-economic, whatever, people, cultures. Your grandma knows about who Blake Lively is now because of this lawsuit. This is a very public case at this point. You're going to have to find 12 jurors who are unbiased. And good luck finding, now, I mean, if I wasn't a YouTuber myself, marginally, if I wasn't invested in this kind of thing, I don't think I would have any clue, regardless of when it happened, who these people were and what it was all about. So I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying that there's a really good chance that you're going to have people on your jury that know these facts, that are going to be seated as jurors in this case. And then all of the public relations work that has been done is going to be manifest. The fruits of it will manifest during jury deliberations. And they might even be able to get one over on the judge. Yes, I can be fair and impartial. No, I don't have any opinion one way or the other. I will abide by the facts. And what they mean by that is all of the facts that I know and all the facts that they know that they've been ruminating, that have been planted as seeds in their head after a year and a half, basically, of litigation leading up to trial, will be going back to Justin Baldoni's timeline, authored by his attorneys that are writing it and presenting it in a way that they want you to feel about this case. They're just beating them up on all of these measures. And so you have a potentially poisoned jury pool. Now, look, it's early. I'm not forming any conclusions. I'm just saying that the way that Lively's legal team has handled this thus far is lacking. They're losing. They're losing. They haven't lost anything, but they're losing. So in this complaint, do I have this on the screen yet? Yeah. Oh, what is this? All right, here we go. All right, so they start out. Now, look, they have this in quotes. It's a Justin Baldoni quote, and they have it in italics, and it's bolded because they wanted to lead with this. How might a different attorney have handled an opening or an introduction? On the set of a high-priced Hollywood film that was set to be seen and planned to be seen by millions of individuals, Blake Lively, who was in firm trust of Sony and Wayfarer and the LLC, and Justin Baldoni, her co-star, placed her faith and confidence that she was going to be safe. And in the midst of a kissing scene that was supposed to have been carefully choreographed, a married woman, for many years now, I don't know how long she's been married, don't quote me on that, found herself horrified when Justin Baldoni, this pillar of strength who has presented himself as this pillar of strength for women the world over, took unforeseen liberties during their intimate scenes in a way that made her feel dirty and icky. How could she ever go back home to Ryan Reynolds and tell her and confess to him that I don't know what to tell you, I don't know how it happened, but I just feel creepy. I feel like I was taken advantage of. And what happened, you might say? Well, imagine choreographing a scene and having that person get a little bit too sloppy with their kisses, getting a little bit too grabby with their hands in ways that was supposed to have been choreographed. in a way that you were completely at ease. And then they took your confidence and they took your innocence, they took your trust and they trampled on it into a sexually harassing, demonizing course of events that I have yet to recover from, that I'm not sure I'll ever be recovered from. That might have been in a more appropriate introduction. Maybe something, maybe not as dramatic as that. And look, I took a lot of liberties there. But instead of something similar to that, this is what they did. Are you confident enough to listen to the women in your life, to hear their ideas and their solutions, to hold their anguish and actually believe them, even if what they're saying is against you? And will you actually stand up and do something so that one day we don't have to live in a world where a woman has to risk everything and come forward to say those words, "Me too"? Justin Baldoni, 2017. That was the start of it. Now you read that, it's like, oh, well, that was a wonderful quote. And so articulately spoken, it seems to be a man who's on the side of women's rights and all of these things. Now you take those two approaches. One of them colors your perception of what you're about to read in a negative and the other in a positive. And they chose the positive, and I don't understand it. They proceed to go in here, and this is their introduction. I highlighted just stuff here, and just that stood out to me is like, where's the evidence of this and that? Paragraph 3, she talked about for years prior to the release of the film, Mr. Baldoni portrayed himself as a leader of the male feminist movement. Again, with this theme of the pleadings, hosting podcasts, holding TED Talks on the topic. In reality, however, Mr. Baldoni's public persona is a stark contrast to his private behavior, which is replete with hypocrisy, misogyny, and retaliation. That is a conclusory paragraph that belongs in the causes of action portion related to sexual harassment in the workplace, as it is accused against Mr. Baldoni, not in an introduction where we're just trying to get a feel for the facts. So conclusory, I give that paragraph a D. They continue. They make more allegations. He claimed that he wanted to end toxic masculinity. You know, funny enough, I'm hearing more and more about how people feel about Blake Lively and the lack of meat on these complaints that have been lodged against Baldoni. We talk about toxic masculinity, but what's happening here is there is an elevated discussion taking place about what about toxic femininity? What then? What about a woman who holds herself in high regard and desires to take over things, elevate herself to places previously unknown, unforeseen, and she just decides to declare that she's uncomfortable? I'm uncomfortable. I'm not good with this. I'm not okay with your personal trainer that you recommended to me being a weight loss expert. That's bullshit. And you know what? You should know better. I'm not comfortable with you coming into my trailer and staring at me in the eyes, making it look like you're trying to get a peek on my breast as I'm breast pumping, as I invited you into my trailer. I'm not okay with, this and that and whatever. I could go on with that. But what about this idea that you could just lob accusations out there? And men are forced to, well, what could I do? And then the women will say, well, she felt how she felt. I've seen some of you play devil's advocate with this and suggest, well, what if she's just viewing the world through her lens? Yeah, that's fair. And we talked about the legal standard when it comes to these sexual harassment claims. You can't just make a claim and say you've been offended and have it mean anything. It has to be corroborated by the reasonable person standard. If your idea of fat shaming is the recommendation of a personal trainer, that's not enough. In the eyes of most, fat shaming, to be more obvious would probably include derogatory name calling and derisive comments and things of that nature. But there has to be some reasonableness to it all. And so for her to come in and make these accusations, the conversation has shifted to what is toxic femininity and what is the dangers inherent in that type of conduct. And if Justin Baldoni didn't have the legal team that he had, if he was not at the level that he was in Hollywood, and he wasn't at Lively's level, but he was at a level where he had the wherewithal at least to fight back, what if he just rolled over? If he rolls over, then he's a sexual predator. And he's blackballed from Hollywood. Who's going to work with him after that? Nobody's working with Harvey Weinstein anytime soon, not just because he's in prison, but who's making a movie with that effing guy? He's done forever. Baldoni was risking, in a real effing way, being blackballed from Hollywood by not responding as forcefully as he did. And so he has. They continue in this. They're, again, still quoting Baldoni. I want men to stop asking the question, why do women stay? I want men to take accountability. I want men to hold other men accountable. And then they continue. At his own moment of truth, when forced to confront women he had made uncomfortable on his own set. What other women, by the way? And you're going to hear me ask that a lot. He trivialized their concerns and failed to take accountability for the effects of his behavior. Which behavior? Whether intended or not, that's an important caveat, which kind of opens the door to, hey, he might not have even known that he was making anybody uncomfortable. How would he possibly know? Which is a dangerous thing to write in a pleading where reasonableness is a requirement of your allegations. If I don't know that you're not uncomfortable by my behavior because you didn't say anything and nobody else brought it to my attention, and we're literally on a movie where we're forced to interact in such a way, and we have a prior relationship where we're sharing intimate details of our lives, family, friends together, pictures, holding each other's babies, and this and that. How in the F was he supposed to know? How was Wayfarer supposed to know? How was anybody supposed to know? That's a very dangerous quote or sentence to write. And then when faced, it says, Mr. Baldoni hid behind his billionaire friends, retained publicists, crisis managers, digital media strategists, litigators to mount a sophisticated and well-funded retaliation campaign that sought to bury and destroy anyone that challenged his hand. That campaign has succeeded beyond Mr. Baldoni's wildest expectations. They're talking about civil conspiracy, among other things. In order to prove a conspiracy in civil court, you have to prove the allegation by clear and convincing evidence. It has to be clear and convincing. If you're thinking about if reasonable doubt is like 99% sure the guy is guilty, and a preponderance of the evidence, which is these other causes of action, which is, he's probably 51% guilty. Clear and convincing evidence would be like 75%, somewhere in the middle. Nothing to sneeze at. It is a high bar. So she's talking about millionaire or billionaire friends, and he carried out these plans, crisis managers, digital media strategists. By the way, all of these groups of people were already retained just because that's what movies do because they're running PR campaigns. They're dealing with marketing. They're dealing with social media. They're dealing with nudity writers, contracts, employment contracts, actor contracts, SAG contracts, all of these things. These people are already on deck. It's not enough to name them. You got to point to what each and every one of these groups individually did to become part of this conspiracy to ruin Blake Lively. That's a lot of evidence. And I could not tell you what her theory is. I couldn't. I mean, I know what she's trying to say. I just can't point to any evidence that corroborates any of it. She continues on in paragraph 7. Again, she talks about Miss Lively brought this lawsuit because she was one of the women or two that Mr. Baldoni 1,000,000% made uncomfortable on the set of the film. Look at how this is such garbage writing. I have yet to hear a credible source name a single other woman other than Blake Lively that had any complaints about Justin Baldoni. I caught wind, I think last week, that there were evidence of other HR complaints from other women. I was like, oh, well, here's something. This is kind of what I was waiting for. This is the evidence that we didn't know about. And it turns out that was a big nothing. They make reference to one of these other women often without naming or stating what specifically their complaints were. Then they go on to say, Miss Lively was disturbed by the fact that Mr. Baldoni spoke about his pornography addiction, divulged information about his sex life, made derogatory, degrading, and sexual comments. What specifically? Described his own genitalia, improvised intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively in advance. Like hell it wasn't. There was literally pre-drafted nudity writers that were already written out, and would have been complete but for her signature way back in 2023. They have been choreographing these scenes and putting in protections in place for Lively and everybody else on set for years prior to the production of the film. And so she's saying these things. I'm almost offended that they're not at the very least describing what it was. They're not putting the pornography addiction stuff in context. What she's failing to mention is that they had this very friendly relationship months leading up to the first days of production, where they were sharing back and forth their personal stuff and all these different things. And the most offensive text message that was divulged in all of the pleadings that I read was, I flirt with no teeth comment or text message, whatever that was, to which Baldoni responded, and he could have taken that and taken it wherever. But he took it with, what he responded with was, I miss my wife and kids. I'm not going to see them for 6 weeks or something like that. Continuing paragraph 8, but Miss Lively was not the only one who was uncomfortable on set. Who were the other people? And Mr. Baldoni and Wayfarer knew it. It doesn't sound like they did. After Mr. Baldoni learned that he had caused Miss Lively and others to feel uncomfortable, he turned his TED Talk and feminist advocacy on its head. He did not hold himself and other men accountable or he concludes with, he has sought to mislead the public into believing that Miss Lively did not experience sexual harassment by portraying her as a powerful bully who fabricated claims of misconduct in order to seize control of Mr. Baldoni's movie. This narrative is false and nonsensical on its own terms, completely at odds with Mr. Baldoni's confession to his crisis manager on August 30th, 2024, that Lively is the kind of person that genuinely believes she's right and all of this is unjust and is breathtakingly cynical coming from a man whose public brand is, and again with that. And then they state indisputable truth that Miss Lively was not alone in complaining without raising it. Okay, so the point is, I kind of called it when I was going through these complaints in this timeline. It's like, it's going to be a problem at some point. The fact that he was so differential to Blake Lively. I mean, we're talking about over a year of grievances raised by Blake Lively about issues as mundane as shooting locations, wardrobe choices, minor tweaks to the script, major tweaks to the scripts, letters documenting 17 different things that she demanded were met before she continues participation in the film. And at the end of all of that, in August of 2024, almost September, there was a statement, and it was in the timeline, where Baldoni talks about Lively is the kind of person that genuinely believes that she's right and that all of this is unjust, and they're using this as evidence of what? I'm not even sure. What is this supposed to be evidence of? That Lively was not the only one who was uncomfortable on set? It seems to me that they're corroborating very specific moments in Baldoni's timeline where he was exacerbated with Lively in her bullshit. And so I said very early on, just putting emotion aside, legally speaking, it is a problem that the movie studios and Justin Baldoni were so effusive and deferential to Blake Lively in the course of her malfeasance that, hey, do I got a visitor? Hey, what's up, Schnitzel Ninja?
Hey, not much. How about you?
Oh, I'm just, doing my thing.
This short document?
Oh, it's gonna, well, I
I'm
say it's gonna be short.
I'm kidding. No, I know it's really long.
Lauren tried to do the whole thing last night, like at 5 a.m.
She invited me and I was like, I need to be in bed.
A negative on that. She texted me or she tried to call me. She said, hey, your phone's off, so I'm texting you. There's 5,000 people watching me. I need you on right now. It's like, I'm summoned.
Yeah, I actually fell asleep like listening to the stream, and my son is sick again, no surprise. Anyway, so he was coughing a lot in the night and I was waking up and I was like, oh my God, are they still live?
Oh, it was a while.
It was crazy. Yeah.
I was gonna duck out on Lauren's like, look, 2 a.m. is my limit, man. I got a hearing in the morning, so
God, I can't believe you stayed on even till 1.
So you wrapped it up. I was there for my friend.
No, that's incredible.
Have you caught any of my meanderings before you jumped on?
I did like the first 10 minutes.
Oh, well, good. So you're caught up, basically. I've only been on for, oh my God, 41 minutes? Jesus, I feel like I just started. Well, anyway, my whole point in everything that I've been saying is I gave like this whole soliloquy about the art of legal writing and the art of writing in 4 dimensions. That you, for every allegation, you have to attach it to a specific fact and a timeline in order to paint a picture to whoever you're trying to persuade. And there was a lot of that on Baldoni's legal team and the timeline that they published in their pleadings. And now I'm reading this bullshit. And I'm calling it that, affectionately. It's not be a dick. But it's just so bad. It is so we're on this paragraph that Miss Lively was not the only one who was uncomfortable on set. And then I'm looking, okay, who are the others? Others feel uncomfortable. He turns his TED Talk advocacy, doesn't hold himself accountable, take his own advice, be confident to hold their anguish in, and anyone else who might speak up doesn't name anybody yet. And then they close with, he sought to mislead the public into believing that Lively did not experience these sexual harassment by portraying her as a powerful bully. And then they continue on. All this coming from breathtakingly cynical coming from a man whose public brand is built on profim. It's like, what the fuck was that paragraph?
Yeah, I was wanted to ask you too. So I know that throughout this, they basically are like, well, we don't have the screenshots here and we don't have any evidence, but we'll produce it if, in the discovery phase, if things go that far.
Yeah.
So no, what do you think? I mean, my thought, if I'm trying to look at it objectively, is that they don't want Baldoni's side to have that stuff ahead of time before they're legally have to give it to them because it could help them start writing their narrative. Of their narrative.
Luckily they don't need her discovery to write their narrative. They've already written it,
right? Well, for sure,
kind of already in the hearts and minds of prospective jurors everywhere nationwide. And so and that's kind of the point. Like, look, I don't need to discover the text messages that we already have. And we're confident enough in these text messages because we haven't doctored them or anything that we're going to publish them. And when you do the discovery and you get the subpoenas back, once they whittle down the subpoenas that they had issued against the phone companies, and once they get those back, the text messages are going to match what we've already put out there. They were confident enough to write that timeline and just show their cards. They're not afraid because when you have the facts on your side, you argue the facts.
Sure, yeah.
When you don't have the facts on your side, you write these bullshit nonsense paragraphs that starts with the general premise that there was others that were uncomfortable on set and ends with well, Justin Baldoni is an asshole. He's a hypocrite because he's pro-feminist
Right.
and he's not being pro-feminist at all right now because
Right.
he sued us. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And so in the public stratosphere, I mean, people are tearing this apart, and rightfully so. The complaint is long on conclusory statements and short on facts, as we're going to continue to find out through the highlighted portions of this. I highlighted this because, the indisputable truth. You can't say stuff like indisputable truth when they're specifically disputing their narrative.
Right. This reminds me of like Gingris's writing, like making all these claims that they have no evidence for.
I did not want to bring him up,
So,
but
sorry.
it is exactly how he litigated his case. Just these long conclusory statements about what he wanted everybody to believe was true in the face of like a mountain of evidence to the contrary. And they're starting down this road, and it is such a bad move because Lively, by the time this is done, might turn into Amber Heard, who is clamoring for a spot on the Tilted Lawyer podcast.
What?
Totally. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, what?
She's unemployable in Hollywood, and now she's looking for podcast spots.
Oh my god! Wait, did you go over the hair brand part yet?
Not yet.
Like, did they mention that yet? Okay.
Yeah, not yet. But if you know where that's at, because I'm going to skip over a bunch of stuff, I may not have highlighted it.
Okay.
I just don't know if I highlighted it.
I know you need to get through this, but my overall thought from like hearing what I heard last night of the stream from this document is she's blaming like literally every piece of negative stuff written about her or thoughts about her, opinions about her. She's blaming him for that. And it, like, does she not realize that people just don't like her? There were people who didn't like her even before this, and there are people who like her even less now, and a lot more people who don't like her. And it's people looking at the facts. It's like actual physical evidence that Baldoni's side has shown.
Well, we saw this in another case. For example, the Laura Owens case. You have a client who really wants to get a specific narrative out there in the face of all the facts against her. And so she tries to take control of how her lawyer litigates the case. And she burns through like 3 or 4 different attorneys before she finally finds one that will advance that narrative in the face of the mountain of evidence. And I feel like what's going on here is that Lively is trying to advance these things because these things make no sense to argue unless you got some kind of receipts. She just wants to get it out there. I wonder if she thought that this is going to turn the tide against her. It's made it so much worse.
Yeah.
It's made it worse. So we know this playbook already. If you try to argue facts with emotional retorts that are void of facts, then the public will hate you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just PR 101. And so if you're inexperienced in public relations, like a certain gingerbread cookie that we know, then you're going to fall into this trap, and you may ruin your client's prospects of working in Hollywood ever again.
Mm-hmm.
At least in the way that she was on course before. This was a huge mistake to bring this lawsuit.
Yeah.
But she brought it. She didn't anticipate that Baldoni was going to fight back as aggressively as he did. I credit Brian Friedman with that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely backfired. So he talks about indisputable truth that Miss Lively was not alone in complaining about Mr. Baldoni without raising who those others might have been. Talks about Mr. Baldoni acknowledged the complaints in writing at the time. And I thought I highlighted what they wanted us to look at. There was a footnote there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn it.
Oh, yeah. See, also answered defendant Wayfair Studios, LLC.
Yeah, I brought it up, and it wasn't doing what they thought it was going to say. I had it pulled up. I thought I had copied this thing. Well, so much for that. He knew that women other than Miss Lively were also uncomfortable and had complained about his behavior, and then they had pointed to a section of Wayfair's answer. On May 24th, Miss Lively confided in a text to a woman who was a mutual friend of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. I was going to invite you to set tomorrow. These people, whoa, it's like HR nuts today. The both of them. I wasn't expecting that turn. I mean, it's been present, but today I came home and cried. Further in the exchange, Miss Lively describes Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath as creeps. Like, keep your hormones to yourself. This is not mine. I don't want it. I don't want you. Gaze or words or tongue or videos of your naked wife. Yeah, it's shocking. Clowns. And we come to find out, now you read that paragraph, and where does your mind immediately jump?
I mean, like he's showing videos of his wife doing like sexual things without her permission.
No, it jumps to the timeline of what she's talking about, which is
well, do you mean like to what Baldoni has posted?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, right. Where it was the water birth, and apparently she didn't actually even see the video. She just saw the screen, like, the opening screenshot of the video. Yeah, for sure.
It makes her look worse. It makes her look.
She's trying to make it sound really bad, but unfortunately for her, we already have the context to what she's talking about. If we didn't have the context, just like the New York Times article, then it makes him look really bad.
And that's kind of the point. In doing this timeline, they've basically colored the context of every allegation in this complaint. So when they say stuff like this, like, oh, what is this text message about? And then you read it, and then I don't want to see, keep your hormones to yourself. I don't want it. I don't want you, gaze or words or tongue or videos of your naked wife. Oh, she's talking about that guy, Heath, that showed the afterbirth video for like 1 second.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And immediately stopped showing it when she says, yeah, don't show me that. Okay. Sorry. That paints the opposite of what she's thinking.
Right.
And so once again, I'm floating in the first 10 paragraphs of this, not knowing what in the F she's on about.
Mm-hmm.
What specifically is she talking about? Because she literally ran through a span of like 3 months of facts there, none of which, as far as I could remember, were proof positive of any inappropriate behavior on the part of anybody.
Right.
I mean, fair points, I guess, if you want to say, hey, I don't want to see your naked wife in a bathtub in her afterbirth. Cool. But it was like for a second and then it was done. All right, point taken. Never again. Never, ever again. But she labels it porn and all these other things.
Yeah, it's hard in that, like, in that world of, how open is an actor in a project like this? How open are they to digging really deep, to say in the birthing scene, to actually go talk, like, it to make it realistic, right? Because when you're really giving birth, you're not caring if your like boob is hanging out, like you're not even aware of that if you're in like active labor.
Or if a bolus might just slip out of your nudity crotch, or what do they do? Those little patches.
Yeah.
Don't be gross.
Or no, so you know what I mean? Like, and it seems like she wanted to be like very, and at least the feeling I've gotten, she wanted to be like really involved. She's having all these late night talks with him about the project. It appears to me that she was that kind of actress in this whole thing. And then like, so she seems like she was someone who would be okay being shown a water birth. Be like, hey, like I was thinking about this scene, like there's this really beautiful video, would you want to see it? And from his side, she was like, yeah, sure, like, oh, but like I have to watch it, like, can we watch it later because I'm eating, or whatever it was that she was doing at the time. So
to your point, what's striking about that is you're right, there was a clear delineation between how she was behaving at the very beginning when she was all friends and like wanting to share and be open with stuff, and the flirtations with no teeth and all that, text messages. And then it just changed for no reason, like shockingly. And so you might argue, well, that's probably evidence of something inappropriate happening that changed the tenor of their relationship. Okay, fine, but what? I need to know specifically what that was. Have you ever acted in a play where you had like a kissing scene or anything like that?
Way back when I was in high school, I did like a musical.
So when I was in college, I was in a couple of those scenes, and it was super fucking weird, man. I remember one, and it was like, I'm literally like college level drama class, just like you're taking it for an elective for bullshitting around. And like the female character that was acting with me was like we were being super cool. It's like awkward because they're like, you're in an intimate scene, but then she like made it a point. It's like, oh, my boyfriend is going to be so jealous. And like, oh, like trying to make it clear that she has a boyfriend and don't try anything. It's like, lady, I ain't even trying to, you know what I mean? But just the fact that those thoughts are flying around, that they're already inherent because the moment is weird because you guys are just two people, you don't know each other, and you got to pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend. And I remember this other scene that I had to act out where I was legit uncomfortable just because it was like super weird. It has started to feel like a swingers set where like the professor was telling me, now do this and grab her like this, get a little bit closer, just nope, closer to like you're almost touching lips. And it's like, what in the fuck is this? Is this guy getting off or something? And he's like this creepy old dude, like in his 50s. I don't know how old it was. I mean, back then it was like 19 years old. It was creeping me out. I couldn't imagine that it wasn't creeping her out too.
Right.
It's already like heightened senses in those kinds of scenes. And so they write all of these and they choreograph all these scenes. And she makes believe like she's down for whatever. And they got to do this and they got to do that. And they're trying to get to know each other. And they have these nudity writer contracts that she doesn't sign. And then she just makes it completely weird after the fact. That's just gotta suck. I couldn't imagine of being charged or accused of like inappropriately touching somebody in the course of one of those scenes when I was just as freaked out as anybody else would have been. And I'm just trying to make it through the scene because I'm trying to pass the class for a grade. We gotta do this some kind of way, you know. So let me know what you need to be, what's out of bounds, what's in bounds, what are we doing?
Right.
I just couldn't imagine of being accused of being sexually inappropriate in an environment where I would have already been like complete red flags because there's all these rules and don't do this, don't do that, only do this, only talk about this, only talk about that, whatever.
Right.
And so my only point is it's already weird and she just made it a million times weirder.
Right. And at this level, you expect them to be like in character. Not that you do whatever people tell you, but like thinking of the scene where they're getting like the slow motion dance stuff.
Yeah.
She is the one who chose to take that whole situation out of character, and
Right.
he's trying to talk her back into my take on it, back into like just trying to get the take, and she keeps making it personal. She keeps taking it out of Lily and making it Blake. So
100%.
so she, in my, I mean, she was being very unprofessional, in my opinion, in that whole clip that we saw.
Which is
even just
more it's more supportive of the accusation that she tried to take over the movie. She's trying to change the nature of one of the main characters. That was never intended in the original book because she wanted to be more Blake and she had opinions about how that character would act and dress and talk and those kinds of things. And so, yeah, 100%. Continuing on, he acknowledged those complaints. He didn't. Confided in a text to a woman, and yeah, we read through that one. A few days later, on May 26th, Miss Lively reported her concerns regarding unwelcome and inappropriate behavior by Baldoni and Mr. Heath, the chief executive officer of Wayfair. Hey, if I do this, are you looking at the timeline right now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I could do that.
It's
Miss
a little
Lively-
small, though. You might want to zoom in on it.
Yes, ma'am. Well, not that. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
I just
that was like legally blind.
well,
Largeness.
I didn't say it was going to be pleasant.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. That's what she said. All right. So, and again, another female cast member reported her own concerns. All I need, Schnitzel, all I'm looking for is one other complaint by anybody else on the set who was a female that was complaining specifically about Baldoni's behavior. And I will say, okay, I'm mistaken. There's some evidence there. More than one is smoke.
Well, and if it existed and it's real and true and genuine, why didn't she provide it in her initial filing to say like, I'm not the only one. This happened with other people. I have witnesses to this kind of behavior. Here's this report.
If I'm playing devil's advocate and I wanted to find a legal reason why you don't identify these people, maybe it's because you're trying to have some gamesmanship in terms of not pulling your cards from all the potential witnesses in the case. But even so, there's not much merit. If you're trying to accomplish dual tasks, which they are. They're trying to add meat to the bone of what they could argue at trial, for one. And for two, they're in some ways trying to combat the public relations assaults from Baldoni's legal team. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to do that, you have to come with names and specific instances of these things. Otherwise, what's going to happen is exactly what's happening today. All these YouTubers are coming out and ripping this complaint to shreds. Myself and Bruce and Lauren were last night ripping this to shred. Like, where's the is this really it? Is this really it? And we were reading it in real time.
Yeah.
And so they've pigeonholed themselves in that regard. Continuing on, they say that Wayfarer took no actions to investigate this report conduct, nor did it implement any protections at the time. Just a week later, on June 8th, 2023, the same female member told Miss Lively about her growing concerns with the conditions on set, that she found it difficult to talk to Mr. Baldoni. Miss Lively responded that, I know I find it really hard to speak to him. I try to cover it with busyness, but not sure that covers what's going on. Later, another female cast member confided to Lively that she too felt uncomfortable on set. All of this occurred. They could have been uncomfortable just because there was growing tensions on the set and Lively was making it weird.
Exactly. Yeah. And I wonder if they say it's in writing, then why don't we see that? Are we going to see that? And I think she's definitely talking about Jenny Slate and then the girl who played the young Lily. I think Jenny Slate's the one that she's been like referring to. And then the secondary one she just mentioned is.
Did she make a comment that she felt uncomfortable or weirded out by anybody as a result of Baldoni, though? That's known.
No, and especially the younger. I apologize, I don't remember the actress's name, but the girl who played young Lily, he showed texts where she said like, "Thank you so much for like a great like first experience. Like you were wonderful, blah blah blah. Like I'm so grateful for like the experience we had together," kind of thing.
I see.
That she texted Justin before all of this shit blew up publicly.
And then she continues, I found it really hard to speak to him. I try to cover it with busyness. That kind of speaks more towards her grabbing a loose thread and trying to rip it open. The way that she did on previous casts with people that she didn't like his buddy from that show, You, and whatever his name was, Justin Badger or something. Is that what it was?
No, Penn, I can't think now that you said that name. Penn Badgerly?
Penn Badgerly. I don't know who Justin Badger is.
Penn Badgerly.
I know him from that show, You, but she tried to ace him out of this set because she was jealous of whatever. So
and then they started dating.
Well, there you go. And so maybe that's the missing thread. I don't know. Look, I don't give a shit about what their romantic proclivities were. I'm trying to just litigate the merits of the claims. I don't care if she was attracted to him or she was pretending to be attracted to him. I have no opinion, nor do I care about what the truth in that regard is. What I do care about is whether or not there were legitimate sexual harassment concerns, such that can be alleged, such that was unreasonable, such that the corporations should have acted to protect her better. That's really what I'm looking for. And that's all I care about. The Gossip Girl stuff, I could give a shit.
Yeah.
She said Wayfarer took no actions to investigate this. They fucking wrote, okay. They had coordinated this very carefully. They had full-on nudity writers drafted. They had it set up. Not only were they dealing with SAG contracts, they were dealing with these other contracts that were negotiated and authored with the opinions of the actors in mind, that were put in place specifically to protect her at even the appearance of impropriety. And she didn't even sign it. Mm-hmm. He is the one that eschewed away the intimacy coordinator at one point. So no, you're not needed. We don't need it. We don't need it. Okay.
And I know she claims here at some point, probably later, that she just said she didn't need to meet with the intimacy coordinator right like before they started filming. And she's like, but whatever she says, like, but I didn't say like I didn't want to see her like once we started filming. But the text we saw was just like basically like, no thanks, I'm good. So there was no like hey, I don't need to meet with her now. I can meet with her after we start filming. We didn't see anything that said that.
Right. And so it speaks to a couple of different things. She had a natural comfort level with Justin because there wasn't anything inappropriate going on. And she did not feel the sting of a harassing work environment. There was protections in place for her that if you feel uncomfortable on a set, let's just say that you're an actress on a set. Let's just say that you don't know anybody. And let's just say that it's male centric and people are staring at you and gazing at you and like it's making you really uncomfortable. And there's these provisions in the contract that you know because you signed it, that you could have people there on set and make sure that everything is above board. Cameras will be rolling, other people will be there. There's not a chance that you would not avail yourself of those protections.
Especially at an actress at her level. I could see maybe an indie actress who's just getting her start and
Yeah.
doesn't wanna rock the boat, blah, blah. I could see that a lot more than I can see her not saying something if she because she seems like the kind of person who will say whatever the fuck is on her mind. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear here,
Of course.
tonight. But, anyway, she doesn't seem like she has a problem holding back her thoughts and her opinions, so if she felt uncomfortable, I think 100% she would have said something to somebody about it, to someone who could fix it and change it.
Are you aware of the story about Sharon Stone when she was filming Basic Instinct?
I heard what is it,
Just in
Krista?
I'm this is totally off the top of my head, but it just reminds me of they had an understanding. According to Sharon Stone, her understanding was there wasn't going to be any nudity of her badge, basically,
Okay.
for lack of a more artful word. And they filmed this scene where she does the famous
Right.
leg crossing scene that everybody knows about. And she didn't know about they were going to put that into the final cut of the movie until she saw it. And she was betrayed because of promises that were made to her by the director or some other thing, whatever. There was agreements, there was understandings that they were going to take certain liberties with her because she was going to be nude in that movie, but a full-on leg crossing of the snatch, that was never contemplated. And yet here it is, and there's nothing she can do about it. It upset her so much. She's been talking about it for like 20, 30 years. She's sick and tired of talking about it. But she was so scarred by that one singular event. If there was any kind of bullshit going on in any set whatsoever, post 1992, there was not a chance that she wasn't going to follow whatever those contracts were to the letter.
Mhm.
Because she's an experienced actress and she knows how people were. And back in 1992, you could get away with shit like that. But not in 2025, not in a movie that was being produced by Justin Baldoni, who's supposed to be this pillar of women's rights and domestic violence awareness and the Me Too movement and all these other things. And so it's not connecting for me. Continuing on, I highlighted this. In mid-November 2023, the parties agreed in writing to implement a list of protections enumerated in a contract entitled Protections for Return to Production, and they attached that in Exhibit A. It includes 17 provisions designed to require Wayfarer to cease the on-set behavior of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. They were designed to remedy the misconduct that Miss Lively and others had reported earlier that year. And then you read those provisions, and I'll jump to protections to return to production.
And they're almost all about her. There are a couple that mention other people, but most of them are about her. So I'm like, how are you trying to look out for everyone when these are all like demands for yourself personally?
Yeah, I didn't have well. They enumerated that, and then a lot of that was like she was offended. No more showing of pornography. She's talking about the pregnancy scene. No more taking liberties with the kissing scene, and it was like we saw video footage of it, and it was like a big nothing. Like, what's she talking about? There's all these different things, and they were based on her own personal, like you said, her own personal peccadillos that she had with whatever was going on set. And then, come on, really? Is this page 5? I'm all on page 5. Jesus. Going back to Exhibit A. Oh, this one doesn't have the exhibits. Oh, you know what? That's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to go searching around for. Oh, they're a new. Yeah, here they are. So she says, this was her list. No more showing nude videos or images of women, including the producer's wife, to BL and or her employees. She's talking about the pregnancy video. No more mentions of Baldoni or Mr. Heath's previous pornography addiction or BL's lack of pornography consumption to BL or other crew members. There's nobody to say anything about pornography whatsoever at all.
Mhm.
What was Mr. Heath's comments to her about porn addiction? That memory escapes me.
I don't remember him talking about a porn addiction. I thought I remembered her mentioning Justin talking about porn.
That's what I thought, but she's attributing to Mr. Heath. No more discussions of BL and or her employees about personal experiences when they had just spent like about a year sharing personal experiences.
Mhm.
No more mention to BL or her employees of personal times that physical consent was not given in sexual acts. Okay.
Either as the abuser or abused. So even when he said that he was taken advantage of, she doesn't want to hear about.
Right. No more joking, disparaging comments to be made to BL and or her employees about HR complaints Wayfair had already received or about missing the HR meeting. Oh, no more descriptions of their own genitalia. Who described their genitalia? I don't remember reading about that.
I don't think we got specifics on that.
Yeah. No more inquiries by Mr. Baldoni to BL's trainer without her knowledge or consent to disclose her weights. Okay.
Yeah, she's really looking out for the rest of the cast here, isn't she?
Yeah. No more mention to Mr. Well, she did say her employees. So
Yeah,
maybe
but well,
means-
does that mean all the other actors and actresses, or
well, I don't know. No more mention by Mr. Baldoni of him speaking to BL's dead father. Okay. No more pressing by Mr. Baldoni to be able to disclose her religious beliefs. I don't believe he ever did that. I think that in the text messages that I remember reading, those like blocks of text messages, he was just simply sharing his beliefs and like they were having like an open discussion about it.
yeah,
I
and
don't
he could have even said like on set, like, oh, do you practice any religions or anything? Because maybe it was probably something related to the movie, to the character, like maybe the character isn't religious, but maybe she is, or maybe she isn't, and could she relate to the character in that way? Like it's just it's so to me it's so asinine for her to be putting these things in this rider.
So these were conditions that must be met lest she continue working on the movie.
Right.
And so these were demands. Not all of these are sexual in nature. It's basically like, hey, just, you know what? We're not to have any contact whatsoever unless we're in a scene acting together. And that was it. Which may be described by some in some legal circles as unreasonable conditions to continue work. It's like saying, okay, we're not to have a personal relationship outside. Got it. Fine. We're not friends anymore. I get it. I can abide by that. She continues, no more pressing. Oh, if BL and her infant is exposed to COVID again, BL must be provided with immediate notice as soon as Wayfair or any other producers become aware of such exposure without her needing to uncover days later herself. I remember reading about that in the timeline, and it was like, Blake, Jesus. An intimacy coordinator must be present at all times, even though she hand waved away the one that she had.
Mm-hmm.
No more personal physical touching or sexual comments by Baldoni or Mr. Heath to be tolerated, without enumerating what previous instances of those there might have been. No more improvising of kissing. All intimate touch must be choreographed in advance, which they did. Remember what was it called? The clit test or something?
Yeah.
What was that thing that we read? There was literally stuff about like clit performance. I forgot what it was.
It's like, do you acknowledge the existence of the clitoris in the movie? Like female pleasure.
Oh, is that what it was about in the movie?
Well, not in the movie, but that's what that test was. It was like the acknowledgement of the clitoris in film.
Okay. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw in the notes that they were written down. That means they were contemplated. That means they were bargained for. That means that there was input taken from all sides. I believe that there were signatures on them, but there were handwritten notes. It's not like they weren't discussed. There were contracts drafted as a result of those notes. They were presented to her for signature, and she failed to sign it. BL to have a representative on set at all times with a monitor during scenes. Okay, but I feel like that was the case at all times anyway. All actors participating with BL in intimate scenes involving her being in any state of nudity or simulated nudity must be classified as active working actors, not friends. No more filming of any BL nudity without a fully executed SAG-compliant nudity rider in place. That was kind of her fault that it wasn't in place.
Exactly.
Once again, and we all know that by now. She didn't sign the effing thing and insisted continuing production with the movie. She could have just halted all production and said, hey, I need to see the contract so I could sign it so we can continue. They were chasing her down for months.
Yep. And we've seen receipts of that. We've seen actual evidence.
Any scene by BL or another performer depicting the character of Lily. We've gone over all this stuff. No more entering or attempting to enter, interrupting, pressuring, or asking BL to enter her trailer. She was openly inviting people into her trailer. I think there was even one time where Heath specifically, and forgive me if I'm mistaken on this, I feel like I remember there was an instance where he didn't want to go in there because she was pumping. And then she was like, oh, no, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then he goes in there, and then they're having a conversation, and then she accuses him of trying to cop a look.
Well, they lock eyes, and he was like, oh, sorry. And she was like, oh, it's okay. I know you're not trying to cop a look.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But then didn't she she's making a big deal about it here.
Exactly.
No more adding of sex scenes, oral sex on camera. Okay, all of these things. And these are in the preceding paragraph, what was disclosed during a January 4 meeting where the parties discussed in detail inappropriate conduct that Miss Lively, her employees, the other cast. I guess their evidence of inappropriate conduct is this list, which is her unsubstantiated allegations, unsubstantiated by anybody else that was involved with the film. Not by any other actors, not by producers, not by camera folks, not by interns that might have been working the food concessions on set. I don't know, man. It's just a lot of nothing.
Also, New York is what do you call it when you can record one way without consent?
Yeah, it's a one-party consent state.
Yeah, exactly. So I would love to know if there's a recording somewhere, a bootleg recording of this meeting and or the meeting with Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds.
If I was of counsel or Sony or Wayfarer or Justin or the LLC or anybody involved with that film, I would consider it malpractice to not have recorded that meeting and have a transcript ready to go for anybody that wanted to know what was discussed. Mm-hmm. That's just not something that attorneys would not have done. I can't imagine it doesn't exist. It must. It must.
I hope it does, and I hope we get to hear it.
I think we haven't heard it yet because it's possibly privileged.
Yeah.
But that might change in due course. Mm-hmm. She talks about Miss Lively reassuring a female cast member that as a result of the protections that Wayfarer and Sony had agreed to, you don't need a hug anymore. Oh, yeah. No more hugs. Wasn't that in her list?
It's like physical touch or something.
Yeah.
At the top. The top of that page.
The top of this page? Or, well, it was in there somewhere. There was no more hugs. And then she assures a female cast member, hey, you don't need to hug anyone anymore. To which the female cast member responded with gratitude, which is hearsay. Mm-hmm. You don't know how she responded. Her gratitude could have been like, what the are you talking about? Okay.
Right.
I won't hug anybody then. And maybe they give her like a nervous smile, like, okay. Thank you for letting me know. And that's, see, she's grateful. That's gratitude. That's so stupid. She talks about a marketing plan directed. The marketing plan directed the cast to focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence. And to avoid, this is where I think that Baldoni, I kind of knew they were going to go here with this. The fact that he was so differential to her and at all points. Oh, you know what? I respect your opinions. Your work is brilliant. You're such a smart person. This is genius level writing. You were perfect for this role. I can't believe that we get anybody else. You are the one. You are this. You are that. All of these concessions they made with her were going to manifest in further legal pleadings, and it would be something like this: marketing plan. We're going to direct Louis Strength and stuff. Wayfair endorsed this plan, and God damn it, they did because they had to.
Right.
Because if they didn't placate her, she was going to pull out.
Exactly. And she doesn't give context to that, of course.
But the timeline did.
Right. No, sure. Yeah.
And we spent like 12 hours dissecting the timeline. So, in Wayfair endorsed the plan. In an email to Sony on August 11, 2024, Mr. Heath described the marketing of the film to date as brilliant, fantastic. You know what I hear when I read words like that used by Hollywood folks? Oh, it's brilliant, fantastic. You're aces, babe. It's like the creep ball. Have you seen that movie? The one with Demi Moore, the new one.
Oh yeah, The Substance. I did.
Substance. It reminds me of what the producer character in that movie something that he would say. Fantastic, yeah. But hey, after you're 50, it all ends. What do you mean? Well, you're expired. Hey, I got to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Super Hollywood creep.
Get her the fuck out of here. We need someone younger.
What the fuck with that movie, man? What was that ending about?
I was like, what is happening? Where is this going?
Tonight, okay, all right.
I know. Like when I realized it was like, okay, people are actually seeing this. This isn't just us, the viewers, seeing it. Like people are really
not like a dreamscape sequence or something. All right.
Oh my god, it was so crazy.
I was entertained. I was grossed out and entertained the entire movie. Jesus.
Do you know that girl had a body double?
Which one?
The girl who played the younger version of her, that was a body double with her face on the body.
Because they had a movie writer that was signed and agreed to.
Well,
so
I think that they needed, they probably chose her based on her acting and maybe her facial similarity to Demi Moore, but her body, like for example, her boobs are smaller, like a lot smaller in real life. So, but they probably needed someone to look the face and body, like Demi Moore, like.
I guess that makes sense. I guess in those scenes where it's like extreme close up of her ass, and as she's doing workout stuff and whatever. The concept, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that movie. I'll tell you like in 5 years. Anyway, Wayfair endorses this brilliant, fantastic. Noted that we're not saying it's been inappropriately marketed in any way. Again, and we know this to be placating her. They talk about what the public did not know. Oh, this was rich. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in I should read the whole thing. In the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media and were not appearing with him in public. To that end, he and his team used domestic violence survivor content to protect his public image, as described in further detail below, which is kind of what marketing teams are paid to do. Even if that's a true statement, what they're saying is they were trying to shield against negative publicity, whatever. Okay, that's what they do. They take narratives and they flip them skillfully through tweaks of the truth, tweaks of social media posts, whatever. But to suggest that it was malicious with respect to Baldoni, I'm not even sure why this paragraph is in here. They're claiming that this was because it was an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni.
That's a fucking stretch. How does that acknowledge them unfollowing him and not wanting to appear with him? That I'm having trouble understanding how they're related.
Well, it seems to me that if that was a narrative at the time, that a skilled public relations firm would do specifically that, because that's what they're paid to do. The question is whether or not how is this somehow malicious against Blake Lively?
Right.
So we already know that there was a PR campaign. We know that there were specialists that were supposed to be gearing the narrative of the film towards more positive, whatever. They're promoting a film. What I haven't seen evidence of yet is any evidence that this was geared specifically against Blake Lively, because that would have been counterintuitive. They needed her to be propped up because she was the big star of the film, and they even acknowledged as such in pleadings down below. And so I don't see what this paragraph does for the complaint. I don't know why it's in here.
I wanted to say that I felt like this amended response, or whatever it's called, amended what? Would you
Amended
say?
complaint.
Amended complaint. I feel like this is directed at the public. I feel
100%
like
it is.
It's not written for the court. It's written for us.
Yeah.
And that's why they say something like what the public didn't realize at the time. Like that's, and I don't really like that. It's they shouldn't be writing to us. They're trying to fix her image, and like you said, it backfired. It made it worse.
It's at Lively's direction. I guarantee you it's at her direction. They wanted to hit back with the timeline. What they should have done is just brought the receipts that they say they were going to bring.
Yep.
Maybe they'll post like their own timeline with all the receipts, Justin Baldoni style. Maybe that's coming. I don't know. I hope not, because I don't want to spend another 10 hours reading this. Again, she says other cast members contemporaneously observed Mr. Baldoni's pivot. What was happening? What other cast members? For example, a female cast member lamented to Miss Lively in a text on August 10th that Mr. Baldoni's marketing pivot was jeopardizing the success of the film. Show me the text, identify the person.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. They don't. She talks about social manipulation designed to destroy Miss Lively's reputation. I need an example. What the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered. That's going to be difficult to prove.
Yep.
The more tiers you have to add into the conspiracy, the less likely you're going to be able to prove it in court.
Mm-hmm.
That plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfair's co-founder, co-chairman, they don't even describe what the plan is. They talk about Steve Sarowitz, who divulged to a witness at the film's New York premiere on August 6th that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family.
That's hearsay.
It is hearsay. And she's going to have to prove it. Was that referenced on the timeline anywhere?
No, I don't remember hearing that before.
I don't remember reading that. They might have referenced it with respect to her complaint. Let me just double check before I start talking out of my ass. Starowitz. Yeah. Yeah, it's way at the end. We have learned that Miss Lively filed a legal complaint against you, Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Steve Sarowitz, alleging sexual. All right, but that's not. Here's an email where they're talking about Sarowitz. That's not even an email. That's an article from the New York Times. Mm-hmm. Lively alleged that Steve Sarowitz was present for the filming of the birthing scene. This is entirely false. And I guess that was it. So it was not mentioned in the complaint. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's that same email that we've already looked at. That was it. So it's not in their timeline. Yeah. So I'm going to need them to be more specific, because you're right. That's hearsay. There's nothing in there that does anything. I lost my tab. Here we go. Okay, so. Oh, now I've done it. Okay, we're back. That wasn't the only time Mr. Sarowitz made such a threat. He declares, "I will protect the studio like Israel protected itself from Hamas. There were 39,000 dead bodies. There will be 2 dead bodies when I'm done. Minimum, not dead, but you're dead to me." She better. Now, it's hearsay. Good luck to posing him and getting him to admit to saying something like that. She better have that on a recording somewhere, or some eyewitness that heard him say that.
Mm-hmm.
because that's
It's going to get struck down in court.
saying a lot of things.
Yeah, and also, if he's going to protect his own studio, is he not allowed to do that?
Even if he did say it, I'm not even sure what it might have been in context too. What do we know about Blake Lively and her allegations? She wildly takes them out of context to achieve her own goals.
Mm-hmm.
When geared in proper context, they don't at all resemble what Blake Lively's trying to allege.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if she has him somewhere saying those things, the context is going to be important.
Yeah.
And she fails to let
Provide
the
context
on the context surrounding those quotes is the problem. Paragraph 29. Miss Nathan delivers a proposal to Mr. Baldoni, which included a website to discuss full Reddit, full social account, takedowns, full social crisis team, on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories. This is the way to be fully 100% protected. And there's nothing honestly wrong with doing that. That is what agencies do. Per Miss Nathan, all of this will be most importantly untraceable. Astroturfing was a term that they had thrown around. The only references to Miss Nathan that I could find in the timeline were specifically with respect to the complaint. This is attached to the complaint. It was an email from Megan Twomley to where Nathan is named in the email, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Again, with that, this is a bullet point of what was shared coming from an email to Megan. That was it. Oh, July 25th, including Wayfair received several crisis PR recommendations, including Melissa Nathan, a veteran in the field. Abel, having previously worked with Nathan, endorses her based on their strong professional relationship. They meet with Nathan and her firm, the agency group PR LLC. And then we go on. Well, you know what? As promised, please find her attached. Yeah, there's nothing in that for there. Closely work as part of our efforts, corroborate partners, investors, supporters, crisis prevention, branding and messaging. There is on August 2nd, they talk about Baldoni and Heath deciding to retain Nathan. There's a CRD complaint, and then there is truth allegations. In her CRD complaint, Lively cherry picks text messages between Abel and Nathan, stripping their exchange of critical context. You know what's fascinating is these text messages I don't think are contained in this amended complaint. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the CRD complaint, the original, and then there's the truth showing the context. Now, if you say these things, then you have to read it in conjunction with these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, it kind of explains away all this other bad stuff. There's other stuff. Anyway, the Nathan stuff, they're going to have to flesh that out a little.
Yeah.
There is a footnote. In the footnote, they say Miss Lively obtained the communications set forth in her original complaint through legal process, including a civil subpoena served on Jones Works LLC, in statements to the media and in public filings in court. Certain of the defendants and their counsel have baselessly claimed that Miss Lively or her counsel engaged in criminal alteration of the materials. That is false. Jones Works produced the communications to Miss Lively in connection with a lawful subpoena, and the documents included within this complaint are attached in the format in which they were produced, subject to the subpoena. Well, I guess they better be. With limited redactions, I guess I was going to say that. Yeah, they cherry picked. But it's stupid to do that, because if you don't, all they're going to do is, okay, but what about these other text messages, as we've seen? Anyway, it's a whole lot of nothing. Paragraph 32, Baldoni expressed concerns that Tagg's written plan was insufficiently aggressive to protect him. Writing to Mr. Heath and Miss Abel, he said he was not in love with the document they sent. Not sure I'm feeling the protection I felt on the call. What is that even there to prove? When I said last night on Lauren's stream that 80% of this stuff was unnecessary, this is specifically what I mean. Like, what are you getting at with this?
Yeah.
What fact, what element are you producing or are you proving with this bit of information? These are the text messages that were contained in the original CRD. Jennifer Abel, you can, of course, do that, but I think he needs to know I'm trying to confidently confidentially send you something. He's texting me and Jamie on the side just to arm you before this call. I think you guys need to be tough and show the strength. This is from Jennifer Abel to Melissa Nathan of what you guys can do in these scenarios. He wants to feel like she can be buried. Nathan says, of course. But when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble for several different reasons. Privilege would be one of them. Divulging company secrets or strategies would be another. There's a million different things that could be. It doesn't have to be conspiracy against Lively is the point.
Right.
We can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this. Of course not. But I told him that's the point of talking through. So destroy her is a loaded word. Now, when I read that in the original CRD, that was, I said at the time, problematic. In this timeline, is that this text message? I can't even see.
I can't tell.
Yeah, I can't tell what that is. I can't tell what that is either. Of course not, but but I told him that's the point of talking.
Oh, it's on the right. It's on the right. We can the arrow. It's that.
Oh, yeah, we can't write it down.
Yeah.
Him. We can't destroy. So that was right. This wasn't included. Of course not. But I told him that's the point of talking, though. And then there was this text message that I can't read. This was excluded. This was excluded. If it's any conclusion or consolation, he's like this with everything. Overthinks, stresses, high anxiety. He just needs to be educated on how this process works. And also, this was excluded. And also, as you know, this is in. I can't even try.
I can't read that either.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And maybe that's how you approach the Baha'i thing. That we had no idea this approach and why we can't be proactive, as we have no idea what she will come out with. Done. Pepto mixed with espresso, and you're good to go. So it seems to me that they're discussing potential negative publicity as a result of something Lively was doing, and now they're going to counterbalance it, which is not the same as proactively and purposely trying to destroy her.
Right.
So they're specifically addressing a PR crisis. And they're saying things and using like, indulgent language, like we're going to destroy her. But what actually appears to be going on is that they are strategizing for how to turn the tides of bad publicity. And if that's all they got, I'm going to need to see more. And I guarantee you, when they get on the witness stand or when they're deposed, they're going to bring up those text messages and they're going to explain that, look, the marketing was going bad. There was organically negative press that had arisen from questions that the fans had regarding why is Lively and Baldoni never together? Like, what am I hearing about all of these rumors? What about this and that? We had to find a way to deal with it. We had figured, based on the way that Lively was acting, that she was going to go on the offensive. And so we have to get ahead of it and put out this other stuff. It seems like they were having a strategic conversation.
Right. As one would. I mean, you would expect them to, right?
You hire them specifically to do that. And it's not illegal. It's not actionable unless they can prove that it was specifically only to destroy her.
Mm-hmm.
Not the same thing. Ms. Nathan followed this by assuring Ms. Abel, we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. Which is, again, hearsay, and they're going to clean that up in depositions and cross-exam, direct exam, whatever. So there's that. We continue. The retaliation campaign relied on more than just publicists and crisis spinning stories. They also retained a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace, who weaponized a digital army around the country from New York to Los Angeles and beyond to create, seed, promote, and engage with content that appeared to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums, and they don't attach any receipts to that, so I can't even take it seriously. There's going to be like 5% of you guys out there that say, well, you need to wait for the discovery and, all of this, and you guys are being fooled by Baldoni's attorney. You guys have no idea what's going on. Wait for the discovery. Okay, fine. I'll wait. And I am waiting. I have formed no conclusions. but I've formed opinions, which is the point. And in the PR game, opinions are pretty much all you have. And the public perception of Blake Lively, who still has to work in Hollywood, who still has to work in the industry, who still has to secure gigs and have a career and all these different things, is this is not going over well for her. So it would have been in their best interest to drop some of the receipts that they have or would have had without having to go through all of the discovery.
Right.
They're dropping stuff. The problem is I promise you they know that. I promise you they know that. The problem that they're having is that they can't. Because if they release all those things, it's not going to go their way. That's the impression I'm starting to get from all of this. Scrolling on and moving on, here's some stuff. Rather than doing so, defendants have admitted that on August 12th, 2024, in the midst of a massive sentiment shift on social media that was engulfing Miss Lively and others with a flood of negative comments, Wayfair was asked to issue a statement to help correct the situation by accepting accountability for the production it oversaw. But rather than doing so, Miss Nathan advised that issuing such a statement would be a career killer for Baldoni, and who she urged to lawyer up and fight. Again, how does this help them? How does this advance their cause of action? That she's literally advising Baldoni to, if that's true, and again, it's a hearsay statement, not attached to any actual evidence, there's nothing wrong with that happening. Continue on. Paragraph 44, she tries to say, so as their own words reveal, the purpose of this social manipulation plan was twofold. It aimed to both conceal the pattern of harassment and other misconduct by Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and Wayfair, and retaliate against Miss Lively by battering her image, harming her businesses, causing her and her family severe emotional harm, millions of people, including millions of blah, blah, blah. This is all like repeated stuff. Talks about online hate, vitriol, finding its way into social media accounts of much of the cast of the film, Miss Lively. But show me any evidence that any of the online hate and vitriol that was found into their inboxes, I guess, was the result of an active smear campaign against them. All they've shown is some text messages of people strategizing a PR campaign that was active because they were marketing a film. How do you attach that to the cause of action that Wayfarer failed to protect, or somehow they were defamatorily damaging Lively in any way?
Yeah, it's not, and that's what they're reaching so much in all of these claims they're making.
Yeah, and so I highlight these stuff because when I highlight something, it's because they're making a claim and it's not attached to evidence. Many individuals and businesses, they admitted that they created a plan in case she made her grievance public, which is a reasonable thing to do. If she's making false allegations of someone being a sexual predator, they should have a plan for that. And why would they be tipped off that there is the possibility that she's going to come out with those claims? Because she wrote like that 17 or what was that thing, that 33 points stuff about intimacy coordinators and nudity writers, and we're not to talk about pornography addiction or personal stuff or whatever. Basically, she had been dropping hints without having any evidence, and they'd been appeasing her that she was going to make these allegations. If she goes public with this, we're going to have to address it somehow. What are we going to do? It's like if you got wind that you're producing a movie and you know that you have an actress who is continuously, for seemingly no reason, raising these issues, and you're constantly accommodating her, and she has some pull in the public, would you not be concerned that she might just drop one of these false allegations that you have been able to keep in-house during the entirety of the production of the movie this far? Wouldn't it be a smart thing to do to have a plan in place to deal with it in case she just decided to go to the New York Times, for example?
Absolutely.
And so, I don't know. They admitted they had created a plan. They did all this, and despite the knowledge that Miss Lively genuinely believes she's right, and that all of this isn't. This was their big evidence.
She's a fucking queen. She thinks she's Khaleesi. Like that is fact, and that is the only fact, that like because she genuinely believes she's right, then she is right. Like, no, it's a fucking opinion. That's how you feel, and like 100 other people on the on the project feel differently.
100. No, I mean, so we're starting to get this image of her as this narcissistic individual. You and I last week called her potentially she might be a sociopath.
And it's based on evidence. It's based on things we have seen her write herself.
Yeah, but their evidence that why would they even bring this up? But they did. They did all this despite the knowledge that Miss Lively genuinely believes she's right and that all of this is unjust. A text message from Justin. Yeah, I just know her personality, and this is the kind of person that genuinely believes she's right and that all of this is unjust. And what do we know about Blake Lively? All of her opinions seem to be superior to everybody else's when it comes to wardrobe, script, character choices, behavioral choices, contract provisions, things that she must have, marketing strategies, editing strategies, final cuts of the film. Her opinions seem to be superior to everyone else's. So that seems to be a statement that fits a narrative that has been authored for us by Baldoni's legal team by virtue of that timeline. It fits. Yeah. So I don't even know why. I just don't know why they would feel the need to highlight this text messages. He fully does. I know it. So those people seek justice at any cost. And this is at a time, this was a text message at a time when he was exacerbated with Lively and her demands and wanting to remove him from the credits and all those things.
And also, it's true. She is seeking justice, or her version of justice, at any cost.
It's like that line from Jesus Christ Superstar. We both have truth. Our mind the same as yours. I'm not going to go on a full. I was not going to sing the part of never mind. I'll leave that to others.
After the live stream ends.
After the live, totally. So despite all of this, they claim their plan was never implemented, and somehow the universe simply organically provided them with the exact result they planned for at the exact time that they wanted it, using the exact narratives they developed. You know, they were planning for a scenario where Blake Lively goes full on false sexual harassment claims. And a scenario of how to deal with that. And what they got instead was, and they seem to be admitting it in this paragraph, was an organic sentiment from the public that was derived from what the public perceived as negative behavior and comments and interviews that Blake Lively wasn't involved in, that fit the narratives that they were planning for. Because maybe there's some truth to the fact that she was making false claims on set, that she was being narcissistic and demanding and a bit much and a little bit sassy. And I don't know, whatever other adjective you want to throw in there, and that it was going to be a problem. Turns out that she files this lawsuit and we don't have to worry about it all because now it's all coming out in the wash. And the public was picking up on this in the months preceding this lawsuit by themselves. So it seems to me that they may have been planning for a way to disseminate truth. That would be one way to view it. Certainly that's how Baldoni's attorneys view it. Upon receiving cease and desist letters, defendants leak administrative complaints to certain hand-selected publications to get ahead of it, gave numerous statements to the press, including blatantly false, defamatory, factual allegations, beginning a near daily social media blitz aimed at discrediting Miss Lively. That's because she was making false statements. And now, well, we know what's happening now. It's just all coming out, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Lively is going to be able to recover from all of this. Like before, she was like, what, Mean Girls, the Mean Girls person. She was in this movie. She was married to Ryan Reynolds. She was an actress of some stature in Hollywood. And if you didn't know anything else, you wouldn't be any the wiser to anything else. Now the way you view her is in the same context as Amber Heard, a narcissistic sociopath, lobber of false sexual harassment allegations, potentially. look, I'm speaking
And
to
I hate how she talks about how it's affected her kids negatively and her family. Well, what about what she has claimed and how that's affected Justin and will affect his kids in the future if it's not already affecting them and affect his wife?
could you imagine? Just picture it for yourself. Let's just say somebody accused you of sexual harassment and it was 100% bullshit. And you've been dealing with this person for months and their unreasonable behavior. And now you're facing a lawsuit alleging that you are a sexual predator. And you got to go home and face your family. And look, they're going to stand by your side. They will. They will. But they're going to look at you sideways, no matter what the truth is, no matter what you say to them.
I think about Mike Maricini. That's exactly what he had to deal with for years with his family. Who
Or
said to him, "Why would someone lie about this stuff? We
Mhm.
love you."
Yeah.
But why? How could someone lie about this? It has to be true.
There's been a large portion of my career that's been devoted towards defending people that have been falsely accused of things like this. And I got to tell you, I do a pretty good job of talking to the family and trying to appease their concerns. But even I, as the attorney, can never fully guarantee that my client's being honest with me
Hmm.
unless I have like definitive smoking gun evidence of innocence.
Right.
I can't even go to the family and say that, oh, yeah, he's 100% innocent. And so I don't use that language. I say, look, the evidence is going to come out. Do you believe him? If you believe him, then stand by his side and wait for the evidence to come out. You say stuff like that. And it's like cryptic in its message. And the family's like, okay. And they continue to have faith in their husband or their wife or their uncle or their dad or their grandfather or their whoever until they don't. They're hoping that there's no bombshell evidence that's going to come out that shows their loved one to be proven a creep.
Right.
But you're not guaranteed that until it's over. And so the mental anguish, it doesn't stop at Justin Baldoni, but it permeates into his wife. It permeates into the hearts and minds of those that admire and look up to him, into his many fans, his family members, his children are going to read about this stuff in the years that go by.
Exactly.
And he's going to have to deal with rehabilitating his character no matter what happens.
Hmm.
Even for Johnny Depp, as well as that went for him, there is published nastiness and evidence that exists out there that people that love him are going to read or have read and will continue to read and look at him a little bit differently than they did prior to everything being alleged.
Yep.
And so the sting of false allegations, it does not stop with the primary victim. It ripples outward into entire communities of people, households, families, businesses, whatever, the universe. And you can't unring the bell. You can't.
Yeah.
I have represented people that have been legit 100% accused of sexual assaults that at the end were exonerated. And even then, their families were like, well, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, once it's out there, it doesn't leave people's minds. It doesn't get erased.
And so you're right. Speaking to that point, why did I highlight this? Mr. Baldoni refused to take accountability for his own actions. He issued his own advice to just shut up and finally listen to the women in our lives. I would argue, in light of paragraph 52, that Justin Baldoni so listened to Blake Lively. It was infuriating to witness in the timeline of text messages between the two of them. There was points that I remember from you. I remember from Lauren. I remember from Bruce. I remember just remarking on it myself that why doesn't he just fucking grow a pair and tell her to just go somewhere with all of that? You got to look, at some point you got to draw the line. Hey, I don't mean to overstep bounds or anything, but the way that it was written, I think it should be written this way. It's like, you know what? Actually, you are overstepping your boundaries a little bit. This was not my book. It was this lady's book. She wrote it, and I think we should stick to the script. and just cut that off at the inception. Instead, it grew. This malignant evilness permeates the set, and she's allowed to basically take over because we're too invested in it now. We got to finish the film. We can't just go hire Jenna Ortega on the fly or whoever. So this comment kind of just angers me. He should have took his own advice and just shut up and finally listen to him. She was telling Blake was telling Justin to shut up the entire time. Matter of fact, it was quite literally within her list of demands that we're not to talk about private stuff. We're not to talk about our friends. We're not to talk about our private experiences. We're not to talk about anything. You were not to address me. Don't even look at me. Don't talk to me. Don't say anything to me. Just show up to the sets. And if I happen to talk to you and I give you permission, then you may say a sentence to me, not more than 3 words. Otherwise, I'm going to declare that your conduct is inappropriate and I am offended. I should have done that in my Blake Lively voice. I'm not going to. Nobody likes it. Anyway,
it's ridiculous. And like, who would even want to act with her or direct her after all of that?
No, I'm telling you, man, he's toxic now.
I do think that Justin was in a tougher spot than just being able to say, hey, yeah, I don't actually agree with that. Let's stick to what the writers wrote. I think that already it was a pretty delicate situation.
Yeah.
And maybe he hadn't dealt with anyone like that before, and someone as famous as her, who, in my opinion, she's famous because of her husband, and oddly enough, famous because of her fashion at the Met Gala for the past like several years.
Which I know nothing about. I'll let you expound on that.
She has these designers design like really incredible dresses for her. Like there was one that was based on, it was maybe a couple years ago, based on the Statue of Liberty, that was really, really cool. It was like a piece of art. But outside of that, I mean, she's Ryan Reynolds' wife. And I remember she dated like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like I just remember that about her. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but
well, sometimes we start down a path and we lose our way. I don't know what to tell you.
Bring me back.
Yeah, I do it all the time. Sometimes I'm in court, and I just have to make the best of it. Anyway, I thought this was curious, where she's quoting Jennifer Abel, co-defendants, expressing her own dislike for Baldoni, declaring, "I can't stand him. He's so pompous." That's the most negative thing I've heard spoken about Justin Baldoni. If that's because this is hearsay, spoken about him in a negative light. That's it. He's pompous. I can't stand him. Well, he's a celebrity. He happens to speak publicly. He happens to stand for all of these things. Some people may view that as pompous. What? Because he's some people that you're jealous of. What am I trying to say? If you describe someone as pompous, what you're really saying is he carries himself with a certain air. And maybe he does. And maybe it's being misinterpreted because you're jealous of the position that he's created for himself by virtue of his conduct. And so rather than give him his props, you say, "Oh, I can't stand him. He's such a pompous asshole." And then I don't even know if she said that or not, but to the extent that I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because it is written in their complaint, I don't know. That's the most negative thing I've heard spoken about Baldoni. That's it. On January 14th, Miss Abel wrote that he doesn't need a retreat. He needs to be humbled. When this movie flops, he's going to try to blame every person around him for it. And she continues in a message. So this is a text message. So this would be an example of evidence. Let's see where we're going with this. So he may fire us because even if we put together an amazing campaign, it's not going to change the fact that he's so unlikable and unrealistic as a leading man.
And I disagree with that because I've seen every season of Jane the Virgin, and he's a leading man in that show, and I thought he was fantastic in that show.
Well, I mean, I don't see why he couldn't be a leading man. Like he's a more leading man than some others. I don't know what makes a leading man. I mean, what the hell do I know? If somebody casts him as a leading man and it works, like you're saying it does, then he's a leading man.
Right.
And so,
like, to think fucking Timothy Chalamet is the leading man.
Who's that? Timothy Chalamet.
He played Willy Wonka in the new movie about Willy Wonka. He played in Dune 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Dating Kylie Jenner.
Oh, he's dating Kylie. Good for him, man. Willy Wonka, huh?
Yep. But like my point, like nothing against him, but he's not like, I mean, he's scrawny and he's not like traditionally handsome, but he's a leading man. He's like the leading man of today.
Not exactly Wolverine material.
He's no Hugh Jackman. But my point is, like, by today's standards, like it doesn't have to be like the leading man of the 50s. The leading men are all shapes and sizes these days.
Well, they were all shapes and sizes back then. I'm trying to think of an example. Who would I say? Who would have been a leading man of a profound shape that you wouldn't imagine? I don't know, like Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra.
But people thought they were. I mean, I guess people think he's handsome too.
Sinatra?
I think. Yeah.
Women used to throw their underwear at that man,
right?
Like in the 40s. So,
right? Yeah. No, of course. And he had like charisma. He had charm.
Yeah. And I feel like Hollywood back then was so male-centric dominated that women didn't get to decide who was leading men material.
I guess if it's like the George Clooney, like Tom Cruise, like these traditionally or objectively like handsome men.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just
some guy like I don't know. I can't think of anybody. Sylvester Stallone.
Sylvester Stallone.
Not traditionally handsome, but he's freaking Rocky. He's Rambo, you know?
Yeah.
Superhero.
I will say he's never been in any of my fantasies.
Hey, I was asking. I just wanted you to give me a shot, right? All I ever wanted was a shot. I just wanted to go the distance.
Adrian.
All right. Oh, I feel gaps. You know, you got gaps. I feel gaps. You feel gaps.
Was that Omar or Sylvester?
No, that was.
No, I'm kidding.
All right, man. Again, she mentions a female cast member who had also complained, shared with Lively that she couldn't believe they could do this to her, and the fact that this was happening to Miss Lively was frightening to her. We don't know what she's talking about. It's a hearsay statement. We don't know who's saying it. We don't know the context, but they're dropping it as paragraph 54. As laid out in the men complaint about don't take down was intended, carefully coordinated. All right, so that was their preamble to everything, right? That was their big retort, because the rest of this is just, all right, here's the parties, here is the jurisdiction stuff, and we get into the factual allegations. So just to sum it, as far as the factual allegations concerned, I'm not going to read like 100 pages of allegations, but this is in essence what they are re-alleging. There was a failure to adhere to industry protocols. There was inappropriate conduct during filming of intimate scenes, with Lively specifically alleging that Baldoni ignored well-established industry protocols in filming intimate scenes and exploited the lack of controls on set to behave inappropriately, which is 100% bullshit.
Yep.
For all the reasons that we've already said. Nudity writers, contracts that weren't signed, SAG contracts, meeting after meeting about standards and coordinators and choreographing and all of these things. You could argue that they went above and beyond the established industry protocols to protect everybody on the set. And they have to plead it this way Because what they have to prove is that the conduct was so inappropriate and sexual in nature that it disrupted a normal working environment as it relates to a reasonable person. And that not only they did that, but the studios and those in charge, the corporations, failed to do anything to remedy the conduct. They have to prove all those things. That's why you're hearing this weird language prop up where what they really wanted to say was like the first 55 paragraphs. But what it comes down to when they make their factual allegations, the reason why they make these factual allegations the way that they do is because they have to meet the elements of the causes of actions. And that's why a lot of this stuff is redundant. And I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to summarize it. They repeat the stuff about comments on physical appearance, where Baldoni allegedly made comments objectifying Lively and other women who are yet to be named. And if you can name them, why don't you make them co-plaintiffs? How about that?
They want to stay away from this with a 10-foot pole, I think.
I ain't saying that fucking thing. I'm not saying shit. I'm not testifying. Subpoena me if you want. I ain't saying anything. I gotta work here. Plus, there is no truth. If there's no truth, if he didn't do any of these things, they don't have any motive. Look, there's two things that motivate witnesses: truth and money.
Mm-hmm.
They can't pay off the witnesses because that is a federal crime. And if the truth is not what they're alleging, then it's not in their best interest to have them testify anyway. So there's that. Maybe that's why there's nobody named, because you don't want to name somebody at the risk of putting them on your witness list and not producing later on. Maybe that's why they're going this route of secrecy. There was discussion of personal sexual experiences. She re-alleges that Baldoni and Heath allegedly discussed their personal sexual experiences and previous porn addictions and tried to pressure Lively to reveal details about her intimate life. I did want to look at the timeline, though, to see when that came about, addiction.
I wanted to say that in this world, or any world of performance where you're like having to portray a character and have relationships with other characters, it is very common for people to share personal experiences and personal things and to be asked those things by a director.
Yeah, 100% it is, because you got to go places. You have to become a different person. You can't be a Schnitzel ninja acting as Cleopatra.
Right.
You have to become Cleopatra.
Exactly.
And all of her experiences, and method acting is a thing.
And it doesn't even have to be method. It can be in that moment you are this other character, and then you can snap out of it when they call cut.
Some people can, and some people can't. Like,
well, I guess my point is, like, it doesn't have to be full on method. Like, you can still do this.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool when it is. Like,
sure, yeah.
You will address me as Master Splinter, bitch.
Or Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, method acting.
No, I'm Johnny Cash.
Right.
I'm Johnny Cash. I wear black. How about that?
How about that?
And a lady called Sue. A boy named Sue. Would you want a boy named Sue? Went down to Folsom Prison one day. All right. Never mind. Anyway, I looked up pornography in the timeline. The only place it's referenced in this timeline, on Baldoni's timeline, to be fair, is when Lively likens the 1-second clip of Heath's the birth of his child with his wife to pornography. It's on screen right now. This is the picture. This is the pornography that they're talking about. 1-second clip of that, which, I don't know.
You can't even really see her nipples, and you can't see her vag.
I got to tell you, though, I would not want to see my, like a guy friend of mine shows me this. I don't want to see all that shit. I'm not trying to look at your wife naked in a tub. I would tell them, but I wouldn't say, "Oh, he showed me porn." I was like, "Hey, dude, save it for the family photos. I don't want to see all of that."
See, this for me, and maybe it's me being a woman. Maybe it's me being a woman who's had a child and also who knows what pornography is, and that this isn't that. I think if someone just tapped me on the shoulder on the street and showed me this picture, I'd be like, "Whoa, why are you showing me this?" But if it's in the conversation, like, I'm gonna have to give birth on camera or pretend to do it, and they're like, hey, like, this is what we had in mind for the scene, like, this is kind of that feeling afterwards, like right after you give birth to the baby, and they want to show me this, I'd be like, wow, that's really beautiful, thank you for showing me that. Okay, now I understand. Like, to take it, it's not like, oh, hey, you're showing me a picture of your naked wife. It's like they're showing it to me for a specific reason that
Yeah.
has to do with what I'm about to be portraying. So to me, it's like I'm able to separate that mentally.
That is fair. But as a guy, I would not label this pornography. And my desire to not see it would have nothing to do with pornography or its characterization as such. It would just be kind of gross. It's like, I don't want to see my mom naked in a tub after giving birth. You know what I mean? Let alone like a family member's wife or something. It's just not something that I would want to personally see, just because it would be gross to me. And I have no reason. I'm not going to be portraying a pregnant woman. And so I don't need to get into character in that way that you just described. So I could
Like,
see.
to me, I would feel like if it were, I don't know, like if I had a brother-in-law and he and his wife like were showing me that, I think I would probably feel like, wow, like this is a really vulnerable thing to share, and you guys trust me, and you felt close enough to me to share this like really private special moment, and I would appreciate it from that sense. But I hear you that you have a different
Well,
view on
girls have a different sensibility, man. I'm not. I don't want to play all that shit. I don't want to participate in. I'm not going to have those same feelings of attachment. Like, oh, there's a picture of your naked wife in a tub.
So you don't want me to text you mine after this?
No one. Specifically, I do not. I don't want to see any portion of your afterbirth.
Oh man.
I was traumatized as a kid. Back in the 80s, they had like these I don't know, PBS shows like showing live birth.
Mhm.
And I remember there was one, I don't know what or why I was watching it, but it was on the TV and it was like daytime. It was like PBS. And holy shit, there is a head coming out of a vagina. I was like 7 or 8. It's like, ugh. Like, oh, God, what the fuck?
I mean, I
said,
remember seeing it in school and being like, "Why do we have to watch this? I don't want to see this."
Yeah.
In like 7th grade.
And so I remember the birth of my own children. I was not all that thrilled about looking down there. You know what I mean? It's just,
My God.
I'd rather remember it the way that it was. But I looked because it's a thing that you have to do as a dad. You have to be able to tell your children, yeah, I saw you coming out of there, and when you came out of there, I saw you, and then they flipped you over, and I saw your little face, and you peeked at me, and then you gave me a little wink, and then I looked at you, and then I just thought to myself, like, ugh. And then they cleaned you off, and then handed you to me, and your head was misshapen, and you looked like a little cone head, and then they handed you to me, and you looked a little bit like E.T., but you were the cutest little baby I'd ever seen. You're just kind of funny looking, that's all. That's how I describe my first daughter, Raven.
Oh man.
Oh, but you do those. You gotta sack up sometimes, man. You gotta look at the things you don't want to look at, even if
Well,
you're.
do you think the woman wants to be like having her vagina torn
Not-
open
And
from that?
I'm not looking at it from a perspective of judging the lady on the table. I would not judge my wife in that moment. I clearly understand she's kind of indisposed at the moment, and she doesn't want to have like this living parasite pulled out of her with her legs spread wide open in a cavalcade full of doctors.
With nurses coming and going.
Poking
You don't
and-
know any of their names.
Yeah, and so I don't say this in judgment of the woman. That is a thing that you guys do that I marvel at. And it's a beautiful thing, just not to look at. That's all. That's all. I'll do it if it's my kid, but I don't want to see someone else's kid.
If someone asked us to move on.
Oh. Moving right along. I'm sorry about that. I tend to be long-winded about such things. All right. So she's alleging comments on physical appearance. I talked about that. She alleges personal sexual experiences. She talks about Baldoni and Heath allegedly discussing their personal sexual experiences and porn addiction. She does relay that. He talks about, there was claims that Baldoni was speaking to her dead father. Do you remember any previous allegations about that? Somehow that missed my deck of cards.
I saw it on her first filing. I did see that, but I didn't see him acknowledge that anywhere.
Okay. She realleges the hugging and touching thing about Baldoni and Heath constantly hugging, touching cast and crew. She became irritated, cold, uncollaborative, or they did, upon her demands that they stop doing those things. That's what she alleges. She re-alleges the description of past sexual experiences. Talks about on the first day of production how Baldoni and Heath described their past sexual relationships to Lively, which I do kind of remember them doing that, but she was in kind, like playing along with it. You know what I mean? Like inviting that kind of talk. But now,
and if in the moment you act like it's okay for you to change your mind later and say like, hey, actually I reflected and like I felt uncomfortable about that, but you cannot blame them for doing it when they were under the impression at the time that she was comfortable.
Yeah.
Also, you may want to scroll.
Oh, my bad. Back to the complaints. Is that what they meant by moving on? I didn't realize that I left.
No, I think the conversation, and that.
No, well, we trailed off a little bit. She does claim HR grievances. Wayfair, Baldoni, and Heath allegedly received or were aware of a number of HR grievances. Now, this I did want to address directly. Where in the complaint was that? Paragraph 120. Let's talk about this. These HR grievances. I was really curious about, so there must be other complaints then, right? So on paragraph 120, we go here. So I'll start with 119. So when Miss Lively reached out to Miss Giannetti, who was supportive, Miss Giannetti texted Miss Lively that what I did want to discuss, feels very, very small. In light of today's news, I'm so sorry calling you in. This email says, I will say that I did want to discuss, feels very small. In light of today's news, I'm so sorry calling you. Oh, exactly what she just sent out.
There's no context.
Yeah, that's the problem with all of these text messages. They're very good at cherry picking, very bad at painting a picture. So in that conversation, paragraph 120, Miss Giannetti on May 26, 2023, Miss Lively told her that she wanted to file an HR complaint about both Baldoni and Heath and their misconduct. Although she was sympathetic, Giannetti told Lively that Sony, as the distributor of the film, was not empowered to oversee physical production, which included Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's behavior on set, and that such concerns must be raised with Wayfair, the studio responsible for the production. Miss Lively was concerned with this response because Baldoni and Heath were the chairman and CEO of Wayfarer. That doesn't make them the fucking owners or the arbiters of HR claims. But I see.
Also, why couldn't she just say to them, "Whoa, I feel really uncomfortable hearing that."
Well, to be fair, she kind of did in the moment, even if it didn't come off as such, and she certainly did in her list of demands. You know what I mean?
In the demands, for sure. Yeah, I just have a hard time, but like, because some people are oversharers and they'll share like a lot of personal information, but that's like maybe just who they are. And if you feel uncomfortable with it, I mean, you can't let them do it and then go to HR and say like, well, they're being really inappropriate. That's just not your level of comfort. And it's not directed at you, and it's not said to make you feel uncomfortable.
Well, there's a couple observations just from this paragraph 120 that I highlighted on Lauren's stream last night. And one of them is, were there actual complaints?
The only official HR complaint was like the lighting guy or whatever who claimed ageism. That was the only official HR complaint.
Well, later on, you're going to see that they claimed that Wayfarer failed to investigate specific complaints.
Right.
My question was, it doesn't look like there was any official complaints at all.
Right.
So what I'm getting from here, if I construct a timeline based on these allegations, I'm seeing she goes to Sony. And they tell her, hey, so we're not producing the film. You got to go to Wayfarer for that. And the normal response...
I bet you went to Sony because Sony didn't they produce Deadpool?
I don't know if they did that. But maybe another possible reason would have been because they thought that they were compromised because Heath was chairman and CEO of Wayfarer. And Baldoni was the director of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that would have been a reasonable assumption, or at least, if not reasonable, it would have been an understandable thought to have, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But my point is, they go to Sony, say they want to file a complaint, and they're told to go to Wayfarer. So if you really wanted to file a complaint, it's like you go to Target, you want to go return something. Oh, we can't do that at the cashier's desk. You got to go to customer service. Oh, cool. I'll go over there. And then you do. Done. So the correct move would have been to then go to Wayfarer and lodge the HR complaint for all of the reasons that they say following this paragraph, which is when you lodge an HR complaint, the corporations are required to then conduct an internal inquiry and investigate the allegations, lest they run afoul of very specific laws. So if they failed to file the complaints, it means the corporations were not under any obligations to investigate. And this pleading is pointless. So I'll continue with this. You'll see what I mean in a minute. In the meantime, paragraph 121, following through on her prior text, the female cast member also had her managers contact Miss Giannetti to discuss that cast member's own discomfort with behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath and its negative impact on the work. Without going into specifics, right? The remainder of the text exchanges show how both women shared concerns about speaking up and the potential consequences of doing so. Miss Lively shared that she needed to tread carefully to salvage some degree of chemistry and camaraderie with Justin, who's not only my director, but love interest, and we're not even a third of the way done with filming. The two women then recounted their discomfort with their experiences with Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, including one incident in which Mr. Baldoni secretly recorded them, and another in which he made an unwelcome remark about the female cast member's wardrobe. I wonder what the comment was. Do we know if this recording has been published anywhere?
I have not heard it. I've not heard of it being available anywhere.
Yeah. Lively notes that Baldoni once asked her if he crossed a line. And when she said yes, he made a joke that he must have missed the sexual harassment meeting. Hearsay. I don't know if he said that specifically. But I don't know. If someone accuses you of being uncomfortable because of stuff that you're saying, it seems like an attempt to lighten the mood, I guess.
Right. And also, who knows if she was acting or not in that moment and pretending to be offended.
Yeah, because we're crossing lines.
To try to build, I mean, we
forth.
don't know. She could be trying to build this narrative and then trying to have, it's like how Laura would set herself up to have evidence later.
Yes. Yes.
So it's possible. It's, in my mind, it's possible.
I'd love to see the recording. I'm curious how they know about the recording. I'm wondering if it's transcribed anywhere. What are we doing here? She talks about Miss Lively and the female. By the way, they promised me text messages. I don't see anything. Lively and the female cast member discussed various examples of their uncomfortable and inappropriate interactions with Baldoni. And on May 28th of 2023, Miss Lively explained that her concerns were not just with Mr. Baldoni's behavior, but the way that Mr. Baldoni behaved after being confronted with his line-crossing behavior. He keeps referencing it or disconnects entirely or gets snippy and impatient as a director. He was so huffy after the sexy thing. I felt awful for saying something. I don't know. If you accuse somebody of behaving inappropriately, it's going to definitely affect your behavior towards that person going forward, no matter how well-intentioned you might be. Mm-hmm. So you made something weird. Or he drops a sexy, let's just say he did this. I have any evidence to suggest. Let's just say he called her sexy in like a joking way or an unjoking way.
Or I think the claim was that they were talking about these two different costumes that she could be wearing, and costumes, you know what I mean? And he said something like, "Well, this one's more sexy."
Hmm.
Or this
Which,
one's sexier.
in what world would you consider that sexual harassment?
No world.
And well,
Blake Lively's world, apparently.
you have to be making a very specific face and staring a little bit too long at specific body parts while perhaps making
Touching
gestures. I just don't think he was doing any of that stuff. So, but yeah, I could see where that would change the tenor of their relationship once she makes that a big deal. And it's like, well, fuck, I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry. And now you're kind of treading on eggshells. And that was kind of the theme of the entirety of this production. Going for the same day, Miss Lively continues by observing that both she and the female cast member are not people who can't take a joke, or who can't work or understand blue. We're not that fragile. Referencing Mr. Baldoni, she said, "You just can't record people without asking. You can't speak to people sexually while not in character or while talking about a character. And if you overstep, you move on. It's the weirdness after that makes it feel bad. Like if we speak up, the vibes on set getting funky and the work suffers." All right. If she's really referring to him making a sexy remark about clothing that they were perusing, it's just a weird thing to draw a line in the sand at.
Yeah. That
would make me feel uncomfortable. If she was like an 80-year-old woman, it's like, hey, I don't want you to get the wrong idea, so I'm just going to shut the fuck up from here on out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me drive you home. I'll walk you across the street. Or maybe not, because I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. Here. You're on your own then, and never mind. May 29th, female, the same.
Also, you can record people without asking.
In public, you can. You even can in private. The question is whether or not you could publish it. And that's a whole different area of law that we don't got time to get into.
Another stream for another night.
Oh, yeah. On May 29th, the same female cast member texted Lively to recount a conversation with one of the film's producers about the cast member's own concerns with Baldoni and Mr. Heath's conduct, and that producer agreed that the situation needed to change. Now, there's a lot of talk about behavioral stuff and crises on set and behavior that needs to change, and there's not going to be... Here's what we factually are interlapping with. There was definitely a weird environment on set. The question is, was that a result of overt sexual harassment, or just was it a result of misunderstandings that were perpetrated by Lively's weird interpretations, unreasonable interpretations of conduct that other people did not see? And so it created this weird walking on eggshells environment that was problematic. And there was a lot of discussion about how to get around this behavior with the least amount of liability possible. And so the evidence that we have is that weird things were happening on set.
Also, if this was all happening, why wouldn't she just say, like, if her intentions are pure in this whole thing, why wouldn't she just say, like, I'm just going to finish this movie. I'll do the promotions I said I would do, and then I'm just going to be done with it. Why did she have to start involving herself more and more and more with these people who she's claiming are harassing her, and trying to basically like go head to head with them to get like the rights to the movie or get her cut published over his cut, and go this route where it actually like brings her more in contact with this person? Why wouldn't she have just been like, I really want to be more involved, but I'm going to count this as a loss because this is obviously based on my lawsuit. It was very uncomfortable for me and I don't want to be involved anymore. I'll do what I do. That part doesn't make sense to me.
The answer to that is obvious. And I think the answer to that is she came with an agenda.
Well, I said if her intentions were pure.
You're right.
Why would she?
If she's just showing up on set to get a paycheck, then
right.
That's one thing.
Right.
But if she has higher ambitions, then maybe we just cast the possibility of sexual predator allegations and start making demands and withholding our services until we get our way and start pandering for film credits and removing the credits of others because you're using your weight and throwing it around to keep certain people under your shoe. And that was what you and I had described last week as sociopath Blake Lively. Because I think it kind of takes you got to kind of be a sociopath to make an allegation like that falsely for personal gain. I'm not accusing her of that. I'm just saying if that's what she did, that's that behavior. That's how you would define. That's how I would define it.
Right. And I don't know if you can remember where this was stated somewhere, but I remember reading that the only way they could get the rights to the movie is if like sexual assault, sexual harassment had occurred.
Oh yeah. I do vaguely remember that. And that just makes it just completely sinister.
Yeah.
Like the allegations has to be harassment and it has to be about sex. Because when you drop that card in Hollywood and it takes hold forever.
Yeah.
And so she cast Baldoni as a sacrificial lamb for her ascent into the Hollywood stratosphere. And it backfired. And now people know that she's that kind of person. And now people are starting to distance themselves from her. Taylor Swift is nobody's dragon, bitch. I'll show you my dragons. Shit. And so, this is, if we're crafting a narrative that makes sense, there's not a world that it would make sense to bring SH allegations on these facts based on genuine offensiveness. I just can't, it doesn't make sense to me on any level, unless you're trying to force it for an agenda that nobody else had contemplated but for her and maybe her husband. Is that the civil conspiracy that we should be discussing? Because it's like her 15th cause of action in this complaint. Anyway, I'm moving on. She talks about, okay, so the next day, June 1st, after raised concerns, Miss Lively expressly told Baldoni and Heath that there were serious HR problems on set. Mr. Heath responded that they knew, implying that someone had mentioned to them that Miss Lively had raised concerns. Raised concerns is not the same as filing a complaint, though.
Right.
That would trigger these requirements by the studios.
Yeah.
On June 1, the female cast member, just go ahead and name her at this point. She's going to get deposed anyway.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah, we're deposing. And one of the first questions within the first 5 minutes, so your name is what? And this, okay, fine. Have you on any narcotics that would affect your judgment? Okay, fine. Have you ever filed an HR complaint or raised an HR complaint to any of the controlling bodies that produce this film? No. Okay, good. Moving on. And they're going to do that to every female cast member on set. We're going to find out who it is. Why are they withholding her identity? It's stupid. Anyway, I recognize that the last few days of filming have been difficult, but I wanted you to know that the work is really great and I'm excited what we're creating. A female cast member confides in Lively that she had difficulty having conversations with Baldoni. Miss Lively responded that she, too, found it really hard to speak to him. By the way, before I forget, pause. I want to thank all of you who are watching the stream and who are not watching the stream for helping us finally break the 20,000 subscriber barrier. We are officially over there, and we're going to have a celebratory stream on Friday, maybe on Flad. We're going to have a celebratory shot or something, and we're going to have a lot of fun. But thank you all for doing that. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for all of your contributions, super chats, all the other things, all the kind words, all of the negative words. Look, I started here around this time last year. I had like maybe 1,000 subscribers. I was literally doing this to like make legal videos to help my clients or to advertise my law firm. It turned into a completely different thing. Went a completely different direction. I appreciate all of you. I thank all of you for joining what has become the Tilted Lawyer family. I love you all. And there's big things coming up. And I look forward to seeing the rest. And, well, what am I trying to say? Wrap this up for me, Schnitzel. What am I trying to say?
Thank you. Just say thanks.
Thank you for everything. See, I always do this thing. I thank you for all of the support. And we have lots of big things coming up. And I look forward to seeing you all in our future endeavors. How about that?
And congrats.
Oh, man, I had that lined up. And it,
Does he look like a bitch?
well,
Is he asking you about you?
I don't know. That was a
I don't know.
wayward Samuel Jackson made his way on. All right. Let me get back into this. So, again, female cast member, paragraph 130, Baldoni's response to hearing the grievances of Miss Lively and another female case member was dismissive. Mr. Baldoni's behavior told Miss Lively that Mr. Baldoni had been heard complaining to another actor that, dude, I have to tell you something, but I don't want to get canceled or lose my job. You can't say anything on the set anymore, which would be consistent with somebody that is walking on eggshells because people are getting offended at any stupid little thing, and we don't know what's up or down anymore. Mm-hmm. And so, again, not helping their complaints. There's more stuff about things. I'm going to wrap up with this. I'm not going to reread all of these factual stuff because a lot of this we've already gone over and read. There's not really anything new, and there's certainly not any additional evidence that we're going to dissect. I just want to highlight, before we wrap up, the complete and total ineptitude of the author of this pleading, and I don't know who actually wrote it. I suspect portions of this might have been AI. I suspect portions of this was written by paralegals, but this is how they approach. Now, they started off with a quote from Justin Baldoni championing women's rights. They started off with that. And in conclusion, I got to get down, it's like paragraph 322 or something, where they start off on like this. Oh, they're talking about TED Talks around the same time. All right, they start off around here, paragraph 315, 314. Oh, 313. Baldoni is desperate to suppress any suggestion that he may be engaged in inappropriate conduct. And then they go on this, they give us a complete resume. So in 2017, Baldoni presents a TED Talk. Why I'm done trying to be man enough. And they share some things. Will you actually stand up and do something so that one day we don't have to live in a world where a woman has to risk everything and come forward to say the words, me too. I think that was in the initial paragraph. They continue. During the TED Talk, Baldoni displays numerous screenshots of media coverage of himself, various sources, examples of his decision to use his social platform as a kind of Trojan horse, wherein he could create a daily practice of authenticity and vulnerability. He claims the response has been incredible. It's been affirming. It's been heartwarming. I get tons of love and press and positive messages daily. Around the same time of that TED Talk in 2017, Baldoni announces the launch of a male talk show, Wayfair Entertainment, called Man Enough. Through that show, Baldoni sought to have public conversations on camera that he had never seen men have. In one episode of the show, Baldoni hosts a roundtable with really strong men, including Mr. Heath and others, in reaction to the Me Too movement, to collectively learn from each other, from experts, and hear firsthand from women, and try to figure out how we can be better allies in our responses and in our actions. In this episode, Mr. Baldoni questions the group who at this table has seen something and didn't say anything. I mean, objectification, harassment, and then not said anything. In 2021, the Man Enough franchise adds a podcast, also produced by Wayfarer Studios. The Man Enough podcast has featured episodes entitled Strength and Unity, Men Supporting Women in Leadership, From Misogyny's Victim to Male Privilege, Modern Dating, Consent, Boundaries, and Respect. This guy sounds like a real fucking asshole, doesn't he?
Right. I was just going to say, what a terrible person.
Yeah. Mr. Baldoni states in his 2017 TED Talk, men are the problem. They created the glass ceiling, and if they want to be part of the solution, then words are no longer enough. By Mr. Baldoni's account, he became a feminist fighting for gender equality so quickly that he hadn't realized that's what he was or was trying to do. And here's links to all of these things. They're giving the evidence of these things, not about some other things.
Exactly.
Yeah. In Mr. Baldoni's own words, when they say stuff like that, they think they're scoring points. In Mr. Baldoni's own words, his activism starts in the mirror with an audience of one. Mr. Baldoni has stated that he feels a deep responsibility to tear down the walls of power and privilege, and believes the world needs men to show up not in big ways, but in hundreds and thousands of little ways to create a better, more equitable, just world.
Maybe she thought she could push him around because of all of this.
That's what I'm getting at. Over the past approximately 7 years, and as relevant to this complaint, Mr. Baldoni has made the following statements. Let's just shut up and finally listen to the woman in our lives. And then the other thing men are going to have to start doing now is recognizing when they made women uncomfortable and didn't realize it. I think that's when the other side of the Me Too movement is, I'm sorry. Growing up, how many times did I hear bros before hoes? How many demeaning, how sexist? We've built this system, the opposite of accountability, and now it's time to figure out how, as men, we can break that system. And it starts with showing what a real man is. A real man is someone that says, hey man, we're still friends, but that's not cool. Imagine being sexually assaulted, finally coming forward about this traumatic thing that has happened to you, and having people acting like you were to blame. It's important for us men to realize how crucial a role bystanders can play in stopping and preventing assault and harassment, how we must be a part of the movement and call for respect and equality for women, act upon that call to action, continue to perpetuate positive behaviors among ourselves and our communities. Are you confident enough to listen to the women in your life, to hear their ideas and their solutions, to hold their anguish and actually believe them, even if what they're saying is against you? And will you be man enough to stand up to the other men when you hear locker room talk, when you hear stories of sexual harassment, when you hear your boys talking about grabbing ass or getting her drunk? Will you actually stand up and do something that so one day we don't have to live in a world where a woman has to risk everything and come forward to say the words, me too? All of us have a situation or a pattern that we need to end the cycle of. First of all, I want men to stop asking the question, why do women stay? I want men to take accountability. I want men to hold the other men accountable. There's never an excuse. No matter how much trauma a man has, there is never an excuse to lay hands and hurt a woman, physically or emotionally. And we have to also understand that the majority of domestic violence isn't physical. These are the scars. The scars are invisible. These things are, it's emotional, it's gaslighting, it's all the various things that so many people experience. I think we judge enough women and victims, but the real question is, why do we keep allowing men to harm? This is the big punchline, Schnitzel. I read all of that, and their big point to all of that was, never mind, there's one more paragraph, and then there's the big punchline. Mr. Baldoni has previously emphasized that I want men to stop asking the question, why do women stay? I want men to take accountability. I want men to hold other men accountable. He has warned us about the dangers of gaslighting and victim blaming. So this is the punchline. And yet his own lawyer, Brian Friedman, responded to Miss Lively's complaint in this manner with the following. And Blake Lively, if she was sexually harassed to such a degree in this film and in this situation, she wouldn't have returned to the film. In sum, Mr. Baldoni's years of investment into his public image as an ally and fierce advocate for women motivated him to employ extraordinary, cynical, and unlawful efforts to bury and destroy Miss Lively. Contrary to his carefully cultivated public image as a feminist, Mr. Baldoni, enabled by his billionaire friend and co-founder, Mr. Sarowitz, has spent the last several months and millions of dollars to ruin Miss Lively and her family because she spoke up about wayfarers' harassing and disturbing conduct. Now, let me just finish with this. I know what they're going for when they say something like that, but what they have just provided to the defense team for Baldoni, to Brian Friedman and his legal team, is the motivations behind the conduct of a sociopath, about why she thought that she could get away with making these demands and lodging these false, weird allegations of discomfort, and the threat of making a false complaint against a guy like this that's positioned himself like something like this. What better guy to threaten with false allegations than somebody that, if this catches a wave, is going to ruin him completely and forever? She leveraged her position in Hollywood and his position as a role model, as a champion of women's rights, to bully him and take advantage of him and to coerce him into removing himself from the film, into giving in to her demands, and now to sue him and to get him canceled and removed from the Hollywood stratosphere forever. And that is going to be their position. I promise you, in closing arguments, that was the worst complaints, the worst official civil pleading I've ever seen this century in a high-profile case. Maybe there's worse. I just don't have a better example of how you could completely take the wrong tone in a pleading, completely miss the mark in terms of trying to persuade public opinion, completely miss the fact that maybe you should have came with some receipts to stem the tide just a little bit.
Yeah.
And how perhaps coming forward with many others, or other women have, or other complaints have been lodged, or this other person, without identifying or pointing to a single shred of evidence that wasn't based on hearsay and conjecture. It is the worst, most damning piece of evidence that Blake Lively's legal team to this point has no fucking idea how to attack or defend against an attorney like Brian Friedman. Who's winning as of right now? Well, it sure as hell ain't Blake Lively. I would say that Baldoni is coming out ahead in spades. I would caution that Blake Lively is right now, if something doesn't change with the way that she's litigating this case, in danger of going the way of Amber Heard. In a world that has gotten a lot meaner towards women, in a world and in a political climate that is no longer accepting of people making these kinds of claims without severe scrutiny, I fear that she might have just ruined herself if they don't do something to stem the tide. And I lead with that to conclude with this. I think that it's in their best interest to settle this and to settle it fast, because if this continues, Blake Lively's legal team has shown no legal dexterity whatsoever, has shown no ability whatsoever to oppose Brian Friedman and his legal team and his genius level public relations prowess. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. And I was thinking too, I mean, you said that so well. I hate to add like a tag onto it, but I feel like they also laid out his entire history since 2017 of supporting women, of supporting women coming forward. You get someone like Johnny Depp, I mean, or literally anyone else in Hollywood, there's no history of them being an advocate for things like that. I mean, very few people probably, right? And they just laid it out in their filing for everyone to see how great of a guy he is, or at least I guess they're trying to say that he's posed as. But I'm floored that they included all of that in their filing right at the end there.
That's why there's no way that an experienced attorney took that position in argument and just said, oh, I'm just going to lead with like a whole 2 pages of like cool shit about Justin Baldoni and say, this guy now accuses our client of doing all this stupid shit. It's like, well, if you you can maybe go that route if you had actual bad evidence of stuff. Like if there was like Bill Cosby stuff in there, you know, or Harvey Weinstein stuff in there that was readily provable. Maybe you could lead with that and say, look at this person who stood for all of these things and he turned into this.
Right.
But even then, I wouldn't lead with all the cool shit. I would lead with the bad stuff because you got to grab attention, and then say, he once was this, he is this, once was this, and he has deteriorated into this.
Mhm.
But they were just like, oh, Baldoni, just a cool fucking guy.
Yep.
Yeah, right. It's like, what am I? Who wrote this again?
Right.
And I was like,
Whose filing am I reading? Yeah.
It's just so bad. It was an inexperienced attorney. It was like a 1L, a first year attorney, second year maybe. I don't know. But somebody had a green light that. They did ask for an extension, I guess, to be fair to them. They only got a couple of extra weeks, but it's just so bad. Like, they started with a terrible premise.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
show one complaint. Name one person. Show
Show me
one
one.
complaint.
That's not ridiculous.
Right.
That a reasonable person would agree was worthy of a complaint, you know? Otherwise, it seems like they're trying to stretch this into the danger of Lively going to the press. That was openly talked about by the PR team.
Mhm.
Hey, what if she just releases these allegations? We got to have a plan against that. They had those vibes going into it months before these lawsuits were filed. And so what if, they had it at top of mind that she might drop these false complaints because she was being a bit much. Her complaints were weird and they weren't connecting with the people around her. And the evidence that she's used, it speaks to a person that purposefully tried to weaponize false allegations of SH for the purpose of explicitly taking over the film for personal gain at the expense, at the sacrifice of Justin Baldoni. I feel like right now that's the public narrative, and it's because Lively's legal team is in over their heads. They have no effing clue about what they're doing.
And it's like, how did they get a filing that long with so little in it?
Because there was probably like a notebook full of stuff that they wanted, that Lively commanded them to get into the complaint.
Mhm.
That was her retorts. And she thought in her head, it sounded really good because she's a narcissist, right? In her head, it was like, oh, yeah, totally. This is going to go over. And then in her head, she recites and reads this complaint. At the end of it, everybody stands up and claps. Oh my God, it was beautiful.
My Khaleesi.
Oh, the dragons. Oh, hey, Palaver girl, thank you so much for the 5 and the super sticker of P. It's all I'm saying is it's not going well, man. And I have not made any conclusions yet because I'm a litigator. All I'm saying is if I were running the law firm that is representing Blake Lively, and that was the garbage that came out, I would find any kind of a way to get out of filing that complaint. Seriously. Or look, to be fair, I guess they tried, but they must have caught wind. It was the stupidest theme of an amended complaint. Let's just start with an awesome quote from Justin Baldoni.
About how much he supports women and their rights.
Yeah, it was literally, this is sentence number 1 of their amended complaint. Sentence number 1 was, man, can't scroll fast enough. This, in quotes, in italics, and bolded. Are you confident enough to listen to the women in your life, to hear their ideas and their solutions, to hold their anguish and actually believe them, even if what they're saying is against you? And will you actually stand up and do something so that one day we won't have to live in a world where a woman has to risk everything and come forward to say the words, me too? They lead with that and they finish with that. It's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, who taught you trial advocacy? Who taught you how to write legally? Who taught you anything? Who wrote this shit? It is a fireable offense to present that for filing. Honestly, if an associate that worked with me presented that to me and they wanted to really file that, I might not fire them on the spot, but I'd be like, dude, what the fuck are you trying to do here? What is your objective? You got to prove that Justin Baldoni behavior was unreasonable. Why don't you start with that?
Mm-hmm.
They just hit it with 168 pages of potential trial exhibits. Why don't we? Do we have anything like that we could counter with? Maybe the answer is no. Maybe that's why this is all like speculation, conjecture, and hearsay.
I think it is. It's either that they're holding their cards close, or that they don't have anything. And I think that if they did have more, they would have shared it already.
I agree. I agree with you on that. And so, yeah, that is Lively's amended complaint. Tomorrow, well, you know what? I'm going to talk about. Hey, Lauren 90 with the 10. She's stick your ass for my money. Oh, you're gonna have to. My ass costs a lot more than $10. $10. We're trolling for $10 ass nowadays. I feel sexually harassed.
Harassed.
This is the most sexually harassing comment that's been on the stream all day. I will not be shaking the ass for $10.
I'll do it. I'm doing it.
Totally. Right now. Full on twerk.
I am. Well, I'm not full on twerking.
Well.
My chair is getting all the action.
We're going to have a special edition of Flat on Friday evening. Maybe the Schnitzel will join us. Maybe Bruce will join us. Maybe we'll have some other guests, but we got to make up for last week. Last week, Flat happened to fall on Valentine's Day. And, well, we just didn't do one. So how about that? But we're going to make up for it. We're going to make up for it this Friday. I got another show dropping tomorrow about the Rex Heuermann situation, about Brian Koberger, and about a bunch of other stuff. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to clip up this stream because not everybody's got 3 hours to watch The Tilted Lawyer. And so I understand. So I'm going to clip this up and release it as in individual parts for the discerning viewer. For the rest of you, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I love you all, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.